Oh, okay. Let me get this song turned down. I need to start timing this a little bit better.
Turn down for what?
Turn down for what? Son of a bitch! Alright.
Okay, I didn't make the joke. It was Gilly.
Yeah, Gilly made it. He's the jokester master. Piece of crap. Hey guys, I'm going to be a co-host on your show, and then I'm just going to go play Halo. Good joke! Good joke, Gilly.
Real funny,
Good
real
joke.
funny.
Good joke, Gilly.
Alright.
Alright. Let's start up. Okay. Welcome, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. And hopefully you guys had a sugar rush hangover, and it has passed by now. Today is Monday, November 2nd, 2015. I'm Frosty, and this is MogTalk. If this is your first time joining us, MogTalk is a show based on discussion about everything and anything involving Final Fantasy XIV, whether it's about the in-game strategy or whose glamour is most fly. Tonight, our topic will be about some of the most important changes that are kind of coming in 3.1. I figured most of you have actually heard all of the details and read the patch notes for 3.1. So rather than detailing each point, I'd like to discuss tonight the importance of a handful of changes from the notes that are kind of vital for player interest in the game. But before we jump into it, of course, I need to introduce our guest for the discussion tonight. A face that you guys are actually starting to become kind of familiar with, because I simply can't get enough of this guy, ShamanArkk, aka Professor Ark. How are you doing tonight, man?
Awesome. Doing awesome.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good. Alright. So, just out of curiosity, I want to know, do you guys, so you clear all the way to A4S. What do you do after you clear A4S with your raid now?
We just kind of look at our bow collection and say, "Wow, that's a lot of bows to be getting in a row." How'd that happen?
Oh yeah, that's right. Because you guys get
we've only gotten barred bows ever.
3 clears, 3 barred bows.
Mm-hmm.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. The odds are. I don't know what's going to happen if we get a 4th one at this point.
The group might be like, "I'm done."
Yeah, maybe.
You might as well just level 4 bards at that point.
Just remind them they only got to clear it like what 7? No, not 7 more times. 5 more times.
Yeah, some will get it even earlier than that. But yeah, no, really, we're just taking it easy till 3.1, and then we'll probably be doing some full raid schedules, and then kind of move it back down to 2 days a week.
Yeah,
so it's gonna be fun. But we're just taking it easy to 3.1 for obvious reasons.
Yeah. All right, and
for gotta get your Zeta.
And for his debut to MogTalk, we have a very pixelated and very delayed version visually of Criogensis. Welcome to the show, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah? Are you excited for being on the show? And
I'm extremely excited.
Your cam's actually working out pretty well. Go ahead and lay out again for everybody how you have your cam set up for us tonight.
All right. So I have a phone, right? Mm-hmm. It's got a webcam on it. Basically, what I did was I downloaded an app that would let me stream the video on my webcam from my phone. Oh God. To a server for the website for the app I downloaded, and that website is streaming to a program on my computer that is linked to my Skype.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And so, just to make this clear, you have a $100 mic, $150 headset, and a webcam on your cell phone.
I just really hope you couldn't have installed Skype on your phone.
I thought about that, but I don't think there's a way for me to connect my mic to my phone.
Had used the expensive mic, I get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, actually the mic was more important to me. I want to sound, crisp and sultry.
Yeah, exactly. So, most people aren't going to watch this show anyways. They're just going to listen to it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a podcast, right?
Yeah. But you have to have a webcam for it.
Right.
All right. So also, since this is your first time on the show, maybe there are a few people who are kind of unfamiliar with you, but a lot of people who are in the chat often probably know who you are by name, at least. Do you mind giving us a rundown about yourself so some of the viewers can have a bit of a background about you?
Sure, yeah. So in terms of Twitch in general, I'm on for a couple channels, only 3. But if I were to name them, Frosty, obviously, Kerr, and actually a wonderful streamer named Sorbet.
Who just hosted us.
Yes.
Ah.
And I believe she's in the chat somewhere. She's probably lurking because she does that sometimes. But
Alright.
mod for her chat, and I just love making stream life for the streamer a lot better, and I just love building a community. So that's what I like to do as a mod. Now, in terms of Final Fantasy, I actually just joined around the game itself. I joined around May, which is a little bit before Heaven's Ward. So that was how many months? 4, 5 months?
So you haven't been like with it too long.
No. I'm in terms of the people you've had on, I'm probably the newest, I would say,
Okay.
in terms of experience in the game.
So I mean that gives us a good like also perception. Like we have your view on this, who's only been with the game for a little while. Me, who's been with the game for a moderate amount of time, and Ark, who's been with the game since it's been released.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're gonna have a lot of different perspectives tonight.
Yeah. All right. Well, awesome. Let's just go ahead and start this conversation up. But one thing before we start, please, everyone, if you have any questions for Cryo, for Ark, for myself, or just questions in regards to discussion itself, please feel free to ask them. Kerr is in there collecting all questions, and we'll try to answer them when they're relevant in the show, or at the very end of the show if we don't have time between segments. Usually it ends up being at the very end of the show, but we'll try to squeeze some in after the airship discussion. And please also feel free to join in the conversation and voice your opinion and tell us that we are absolutely wrong.
Yeah, mostly me though.
Mostly Cryo. Mostly Cryo. So, there's a handful of things that I think are coming to the game that's going to be a huge change for 3.1. But I want to allot as much time as I can to the biggest, which of course is going to be airship content. A lot of people are prepping for this because it means an access to a wealth of new items and group content.
Or shit items.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And then first off, Cryo, I'd like to just ask, coming from your perspective, what do you believe the new airship content missions are going to really provide for you?
So when I came into the game, I came into Final Fantasy knowing it was a very PvE-based MMO. I'm not really one to be into PvP. I do understand it's part of an MMO content. It's just not what I'm about. So
Right.
when I heard about the airship stuff, I was really excited because that kind of the free roam, do stuff with your friends kind of content is what I was looking forward to when it came to Final Fantasy. So when I heard about the airship stuff, when you get to fight monsters with even other FC members and alliances, maybe even cross-server stuff, I just think that's really great for the health of the game itself. So it's gonna give us a lot of content to help until 3.2 at least.
Right. I mean, this should definitely help with 3.2. Ark, what's your expectations and what you think airships are going to bring for you?
I think that they're gonna keep me busy for a very long time. It sounds like.
Yeah.
I've been looking forward to like alliance content for a while. We're getting a lot of jobs in the game, and there's just a lot of jobs I haven't played with that I just think now I have an opportunity to. I love exploration. Like I like randomized content and exploration within MMOs though, which is usually hard to do. That's very old MMO kind of thing to do. And
I want to actually hit on that real quick while you're just mentioning that randomized content. There's nothing in this game like that right now. I mean, you have PvP with randomized towers, but
and the loot drop. When I always get like a 22 and everything, that's randomized.
But we mean the actual content, not the rewards. The rewards are always pretty random, yeah.
And so, if you've ever played Minecraft, like when you go in there, it's completely randomly generated. Yeah, it's a great comparison, right? Yeah. And so you don't know where the little dungeons are. You don't know where the ore is that you're going to have to mine. And it's the same thing for this map, though. You don't know where you're going to be able to go for farming. You don't know where you're going to be going for monsters.
If it's done right, we shouldn't know. Like
Right.
That's like, I mean, it's not. We know it's pretty random, but is it going to have some kind of pattern that's easy to decipher? I hope not. I really hope they did it right, where at like the 30-minute mark, I don't go to this specific spot because I know this rare monster spawns here or this chest spawns here. It should be very similar to how the hunts work, and it's like there's a billion places it can spawn, and maybe it's on a timer, and the timer should be randomized, and even if it's not, I'd be happy. But yes, I want like as random as possible, because Yoshi has said many times this is about the exploration of the zone, and your experience should feel different every time you're in there. So sometimes I'll go and I'll find this very rare monster. I'm like, guys, come get this rare monster. And sometimes it'll just be rather easy to kill it, and sometimes we're competing with another group, and sometimes this rare monster just happens to be around a bunch of rank 5 monsters or something like that, Sometimes maybe there's a chest behind the monster, and I just want to go and get the chest because I'm in a small group. So it's just it's going to feel very similar to how PvP feels now that it's when you're queuing up for PvP, in how random it is. More so even, though, too.
Yeah, because there's the amount of stuff that you can do in there, and you got 90 minutes, and so you can actually probably even queue up with 8 crafters, 8 gatherers, and do nothing but go and do that.
I hope that you should be able to. The problem is you do have to unlock flying, so I'm guessing that the grafters would have to stealth by everything, so that's still kind of interesting in itself. If you're all gatherers and you just queue up as 8 gatherers, and then you stealth past everything to unlock all the flying, and maybe find some gathering points on the island you start on.
Right. I mean, I think it's actually going to be you go in there and you don't really have to fight any monsters to actually get to those flying points. You're just going and they're just dead points. You go to that point. Okay, got it. Go to that point. Takes 5 minutes and then you're done.
There are monsters and they looked aggressive.
Really?
In this footage video. Yeah, they looked aggressive. I did see them. You're right. They did kind of walk past them. I don't know if that was special because it was a test server, but they had the aggressive symbol beside them, and this is the point where they were just riding their mounts on the ground, and they showed them going to get the wind currents and stuff like that. There's definitely monsters on the first island that you start on the ground, so you might have to fight your way through it or do some kind of strategy to get through them. I think that's part of it. He did say it was only going to take about 10-15 minutes, so I imagine it's rather small.
Didn't they say that you could change your class at any time while you're on the island?
Yep.
So you could potentially just change into a combat class until you got to your node, and then just
it's just we're talking about the pure gatherers and the pure.
Right when you get there,
yeah.
I mean, obviously, you're gonna have to.
I think you have to have a level 60 because you need to complete the story to do this content. I think.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
So you'll have to have at least one level 60. So you should have something to go through if you have to do it that way. But
I mean, at least in terms of getting the wind currents, you'll be able to do it on your combat class. You won't have to worry about it when it comes to
in general, it looked like you will have to go past monsters to get to stuff. So I think the crafter stealth should be sufficient, but it's slow. I think it's slow anyways. A lot slower than a mount anyways. So it might be just faster to get to your time. So you might want to get to those crazy, interesting looking nodes or gathering points quicker.
Do you think that maybe they'll add in a function where there's one node and one person can get it? Or is it going to be everyone can get all the nodes?
I'm not really sure what they're going to do with that. I don't really see a reason for it to be competitive for nodes. Because, again, it's more about, you found the node, you might as well gather. I think they won't last forever. And they might not respawn while you're there. But I don't see why...
Scripts?
Yeah, I actually haven't done scripts, but...
I haven't either.
Okay.
I don't know.
No, I'm just saying, I know, when you craft a node, it disappears for a little bit and then comes back, and that's usually how you do that kind of stuff. And fishing, you just keep fishing in the same pond for a while. I think eventually the fish become suspicious. I doubt they'll have that in the airship content. That's probably not going to happen. But no, I don't see fishing's never going to be competitive for sure. So
that's what you think.
Yeah, I don't think
Bass Pro fishing.
So
People will
I
make
don't the other
anything competitive.
They kind of showed in the video multiple people hitting the same points and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Videos. So I don't think gathering will be competitive. It's just a matter of getting to those points as a group. You got to remember sometimes there just won't be more than your own group in these instances sometimes, or you just might never interact with the other groups that are on in the place because it's a big zone and there might not be that it might not be full.
I mean, that sounds kind of insane to me though. To think that you have how many people are going to be on each map? Do you think 24, or is it going to be 3 groups, 3 alliances?
For one instance, it's up to 72 people.
Okay.
Oh wow.
So 72 people, and you think that there's a chance that you won't even run into these other groups while you're running around and doing stuff?
If there's 72 people, the odds of you running into another group is rather high. But you look at how long it takes to kill some of these monsters, and if you're just you find you might just be flying around and looking for packs. Yeah, I'd say it's pretty likely with a lot of people. But I'm also saying that unless there's I can't imagine there being, but unless there's a way to join it one in progress, I don't know why you would ever join one in progress because you can queue up with an undersized group. Because you can't join in progress, I just don't imagine I don't know. It's 72 people happening that often, really. Okay. Right. So, but it will happen. It's just, I should say, it'll happen often, just not every time. So sometimes you won't have a lot of people in the same instance as you, and sometimes you will. So you got to imagine the content in both ways. It's like, oh, there's 72 people in this one. Oh, I did a queue really early in the morning with a group of like 8 people, and it's like, I think there might be another group in here, but I don't know, or maybe you can show. Yeah, so you might not interact with people sometimes when you're in there.
Yeah, and I want to actually get on that a little bit more in a second, but I also wanted to hit another note that might seem like a little bit of a tangent at the moment, but one of the things that you mentioned to me when we were talking about it before show is that it had like an old world MMO feel, and I actually want to ask Cryo real quick. Cryo, how many MMOs have you played before Final Fantasy XIV?
2. And one of them I wouldn't really consider an MMO anymore, but some people would. RuneScape was my first MMO. It sucks now. And then WoW was my second MMO.
Okay.
I didn't really play. I played until like 60 or 80, so not really that much at all. And then there's this one. So. Okay.
So Ark, what would you consider an old world MMO?
Or an old MMO kind of feel?
Yeah.
I definitely Final Fantasy 11 and down for sure. As far as age goes, WoW is getting up there. They definitely have some old MMO elements to it. It's kind of like in the middle right now. I'll give it a few more years and it's probably going to feel pretty old, but not quite yet. But there are some elements to WoW that are definitely old MMO, especially in their vanilla content that hasn't been changed.
Grinding.
But I'd say like for this content, it feels a lot like a lot of the old MMO stuff that you get, which is you kind of, it's basically you go and explore and you might not get anything, and there might not be anything there when you go and explore, and sometimes there will be interesting things. The content won't be very well balanced, and it's just more about like getting in there, and sometimes you get lucky and have some fun, and sometimes you really won't be that successful at what you find, kind of thing. That's part of it. It's not like there's more to the old MMO. Usually it's very time consuming when the exploration was really slow and time consuming in old MMOs. This is a little bit more modernized in that because it's in an instance and it's timed, and you have flying mounts and stuff like that, you can get through the zone and explore it a lot easier and get a lot done. Really, you could go and kill any mob and probably get some you get some benefit out of it and things like that. So
you think this will actually attract a lot of the people who wanted the really hard old content that used to do like
for sure
40-man raids, 100-man raids?
Well, maybe not raiding, but like it's like again, old MMOs raiding was kind of like a very very different. It was usually all open world content. There wasn't really instances. Right. So like Dynamis is one from Final Fantasy XI, which is basically you go into a zone and there's a crap ton of extremely powerful trash, and within this extremely powerful trash, there'd be like bosses, and you often had to clear out the trash that were very difficult to kill sometimes to fight these bosses that were kind of like also very powerful, and the trash could respawn on you and stuff like that. And there'd also be some kind of additional rules and some RNG to the loot and like chests that drop that give you more time in it, and like that's I don't think a lot of those elements will be there, but it's gonna have that feel for sure. Because again, we've seen a lot of gameplay videos, and those mobs have a lot of HP for like low ranks. They hit pretty decently too, and they're gonna have mechanics, and some of the mechanics might require a lot of space sometimes. And you might have to consider, we need to clear out these mobs, and these mobs have a respawn timer, and we have to be very careful. We might need a group kind of taking care of the respawns if it takes a long time to kill if we have a small group. Or you could just outnumber it. Right. So, Cryo, and I would consider you a New World MMO player then, right?
Yeah, I would, yeah.
Okay, and so does this kind of content appeal to you? You're like, man, I'm excited to do it, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what it is. I don't know if it's just what airships are breaking, or if it's just Final Fantasy in general, or if it's a little bit of both. But I don't know. I really love the idea of doing this kind of content, like exploring an island, killing a bunch of giant monsters with your friends. I mean, it's kind of what we kind of do, at least me personally, is what I do raiding for, is to kill a giant boss. And so if I can do that like repeatedly, and it's not even, I mean, it's going to be hard, obviously, but it's not necessarily challenging, and it's going to be a lot more weight off my shoulders. It's going to be a lot more fun for me personally.
Yeah, the excitement, like, this is something that maybe, like, I could describe to you. Some people who've played older MMOs will know what this is like, but the excitement of going into a dungeon you've done, like, or let's say, we'll call it a dungeon for now, but it's really, but, like, yeah, going into an instance, like, maybe 10 times, you've done it 10 times up to now. And then the 11th time you go in there, you just see this mob you've never seen before, and it looks absolutely amazing. and you're like, guys, we have to kill this mob. It's like I don't know what it's gonna do. I don't know what it's gonna drop.
Oh, that's
but
cool.
It's like so cool. Like, and we just happened to stumble across it. And then, to add on to the excitement, you see another group who sees it at the same time as you, and you're scrambling around trying to think like, should we pull it now, even though we're not totally ready, or
wow.
like you get this like adrenaline rush of like like we need to fight this thing, but I don't know if we can kill it if we pull it now, and the other group might pull it, and like how are we going to deal with this? How are we going to try and get do the minimum damage to get some claim on it? And like maybe another group will show up because it's like maybe the information's passed around, and just that kind of the excitement of like you found something. You want to try and get it done as like you want to try and get it, make sure you benefit from finding it somehow, and you might find it when you went in with a group of 4, no one else is in the zone, and it's like, man, I wish we could kill this mob, but we don't have a big enough group to do it. I just have to let it go, and you might not see it for another 20 times you go in there,
Right.
and it's just like so interesting. Like it's interesting. Like again, this is part of the old MMO stuff. It's like sometimes you'll see the most awesome things, and you just can only enjoy
Do
them
that one time.
just enjoy from seeing it, and
Right.
and sometimes you can actually tackle the content or go in more prepared, hoping it happens.
Right.
But it's like the excitement of that it feels very kind of, it's just amazing. It's like a sense of exploration and an adventure almost kind of, which is something that old MMOs were really big on. It's like it feels like an adventure because it was a little bit more realistic. Like you were waiting around for boats for like 30 minutes and stuff like that. It's like, this is a cool journey.
Well, I mean, let's consider how fast information kind of goes around now. Do you think that feeling will last very long?
Well, that's the thing, though. That if
Randomly
it's
generated.
truly random,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what kind of information. So it's like, yeah, this monster exists, and you might see it sometimes.
I'm kind
Yeah,
of curious
it's
to
like-
actually.
Like
I'm
it
kinda
might
curious to
spawn.
see. Sorry.
I was just gonna say it might spawn in the instance that you were in, and you just never found it. And it might spawn very rarely. Like it's only like 5% of the
Right.
time you do the dungeon, it's gonna spawn at some point during that 90 minutes, and it spawned, and you didn't know, and the odds of you actually seeing this mob again, and its interesting mechanics potentially, and maybe even the pet it drops or the loot it drops, it could be rather rare and very uncommon. And it makes it so, like, again, there's always this sense of, like, I want to explore and hopefully see some new stuff because it's always going to potentially come up.
Yeah, that is exciting.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I'm kind of curious to see, like, of the randomly generated stuff, how much of it do they have, you know?
Yeah.
How much variability is there going to be?
Yeah, I mean, we're being kind of hopeful, I think, right now.
There might be, like, 5 mobs for all we know.
Well, rare monsters, yeah. I'd say there's likely a good amount. I can imagine there being a decent amount to keep us busy for a while for rare monsters. I would claim probably being very generous. No, sorry, not being very generous. Being very realistic. They probably have at least 8 rare monsters that could potentially spawn, like very very rare ones, and then of course there's just like a ton of regular monsters that spawn. Not to mention there are 3 difficulties, so maybe I could say 8 rare monsters for each difficulty. I could imagine that being true.
That's what I'm saying. There's so much content in this that we probably don't even know about. Because we only got, like, preliminary patch notes, right?
Yeah. Well, we don't have preliminary patch notes yet.
I mean, like...
We have...
we have live
the
letter stuff.
The live letter stuff. But, sorry, it's, the content, again, is sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
It's fine.
Good
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm laughing this entire time watching your... Like, I'm just keeping my eye on your
My dog?
video feed.
I know,
No,
I see-
Cryo.
I
Yeah,
see you smiling, too, and I'm like, I know what he's looking at.
Yeah, it's just like all of a sudden it just starts to catch up and does this super crazy speed up thing.
If you want to
Yeah.
get back at me, Kerr, you can screenshot some of these faces I'm making, clearly.
Yeah. So I guess I was just kind of talking about, like, keep in mind that this is just the first crack at their airship content. They can always add more airship content into, and it's already a ton of content. Oh, and the thing I was going to say was a lot of the content is recycled. And that's not necessarily a bad thing for this content because they do so much R&D. All the glamours are recycled, which means they can add a lot of content to the game. They could keep doing that for every airship content. Always do recycled glamour the way the glamour looks. The eye level goes up, but and because the stats in the glamour are always random, this content's really easy to produce because they reuse models. And they actually added some new models, which is crazy still. Like I saw, I think the T-Rexes were already in the game, but the Bronchiosaurus was the big one that everyone's going crazy. So they probably add a couple new models in, but they don't really have to add new models in. It's just giant monsters.
They can just change the color of it. I mean, they don't
Change
really
the color.
Yeah.
And like for this type of content, it's great because as long as they add a bunch of RNG to it, and it basically enables them to produce this content relatively. Like I don't want to say it's super easy, but it is a lot easier because they recycle a lot of content. And I don't. And again, like that sounds bad, but this is the best way you could recycle content. Honestly, we might even see like primal models show up in these at some point. For all we know.
Bismarck, please.
Yeah, that would be pretty funny.
Bismarck's. Yeah. His back.
That's asking a little too much. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But you never know. Like maybe some of the lesser ones too, but.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like they it's all about recycled models. So it's like kind of like I rarely ever see this model, and it's kind of cool to see it like as a mini boss or a boss.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun to see that Brontosaurus swing its neck around to attack people.
Yeah, well, like the tank is like underneath the leg. It's like right underneath the feet. So I don't know how the neck's hitting them, but whatever.
It'll happen, I'm sure.
Things happen.
Maybe it'll be like an outward AoE damage, like it hits everyone that's not close to the boss, right? Kind of like Chimera, lightning.
Yeah, I was thinking like, how do the positionals work on that? I hope it doesn't have any positionals. I'd have to be at that like perfect.
Oh yeah,
spot.
you have to like
that thing's
run
huge.
halfway across this crate.
No, there'd be a perfect
Backstab.
spot. Like sometimes large targets do have better positionals. There'd just be only like one area, and you just step back and forth. But it'd be very difficult for me to know when I'm at the rear or the flank on giant mobs like that. But yeah, I'm sure that's going to be a problem often because just the fact that they have one giant mob means they have a lot of giant mobs for sure. No doubt about it. They
better have a lot of giant.
Oh, I'm sure, without a doubt. Like it's you just make a model larger, and it's like it jumps loot.
Airship content in general is obviously this is something that we could see in future content to come. I mean, they could just add a whole slew of things. This is like a new feature to the game. It's not just little like primal extreme that they're adding.
Right. It's just not like another boss. You're like, oh, another boss we can fight. Which they're bringing other bosses to the game. But the fact that this is content that they could work really well with, and they can easily just dump stuff in there. It's not like they have to put a lot of work to put these bosses in there, or these S ranks or whatever. And it's fresh. Every time you go in there, it's something new. So
it'll help with the long-lasting appeal. It'll help with burnout for sure. I'm happy to see that this content is something that we're going to be looking forward to every 2 patches probably now. Right. You know, probably going to add in a new and for the rest of the game's life too potentially.
Man, how much do you think they're like adding up all this stuff that they just have to keep coming in and like, okay, now we have to go in there and add in airship content, a new Crystal Tower version, a new 3 new dungeons.
They're pretty ambitious with their new systems, aren't they? Like
I feel like they kind of have to be though right now.
but they've been keeping up with it, which is the crazy thing. Obviously, as a modern MMO, as soon as you add in a new system, it's not as hard to add in more content for it in future patches, which is kind of like that's probably just a truth like to modern MMOs. It's just like once you develop the system, it's developed in a way that's like easy to keep adding to it. Yeah. So it's probably not the greatest when it first comes out, but like you keep adding a little bit to it each time, and and you have the dev. It's not as much dev effort as it would be for maybe an older MMO. And next thing you know, you have like a ton of like a really awesome MMO when it's like midway through its life.
Yeah. One other thing I want to discuss about this is the FC's role in all of this content, because while you can go up and do a duty finder, you can't do like the most difficult content. You have to do an easy version of it. And I'm kind of curious. I have a handful of questions about how this is really going to affect people coming in and playing this game. First, I'm kind of curious about how it's going to. What's really the big deal? So now we have FC players going and doing the hard content. How much more are they really getting than the people who are going out and doing Duty Finder?
I feel like they're going to get more of a chance to get the rare drops, right?
Yep.
Am I correct in saying that?
Likely. I don't think 210 gear is going to be as common as people think.
No.
At least if you go, say we're to do hard mode, it probably is rather common, but if you don't already have 210 gear, then it's probably going to be a little bit difficult to do without using an alliance, and of course getting an alliance together might not always be the easiest thing to do. But I don't like. I that's probably the benefit. But again, it's not really more about the free company. It's more about the airship. The free company having an airship.
Right. Yeah. Level 10.
So you need a free company that has an airship and multiple airships potentially, and then you just need some representations of from each individual from the free company to use those airships, and you really can use anyone. So it doesn't lock it in. You just really need a free company that's doing airship properly.
If it's not your free company, and maybe you have like a really small FC, you need to be aware of a large FC you could possibly join, or
Potentially,
help out with.
or even small FCs could have a ton of airships. There's no reason they couldn't.
That's true.
And maybe they'll be the free company that's like, hey, use our airships. Again, it's really just about how many level 50 airships you have. If you only have one level 50, you need 3 to do an alliance.
To be ultimate.
You can do you can do anything 4 and up.
Yeah.
So, well, actually, I think you need 4 minimum per airship is what you need. So you could do an alliance of 4 and use all 50 airships.
There goes Cryo's face.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh
we lost.
God.
Oh no. All right.
My phone.
It's great. We'll just leave it this way, and we'll have Cryo kind of part Ark and part Cryo. There we go. I think he's coming back. All right. So, I mean, so the only reason that I would want to do it with my FC and go through the hassle of gathering everyone and everything would be because it's just more likely I'll get the loot. Like, if I don't have good connections, I can still have a real easy way to farm the content. I just won't be doing it with people I know, and it won't be as likely.
I mean, when I imagine it, because I probably won't be running with my raid group. I might be running it with my free company, but even then I doubt I'll fill a whole alliance with free company all the time. And sometimes I'll be maybe doing it during the day, and I'll only find 4 people, or I'll just do a small group. And what I imagine happening when I do that is that if I was doing it with a group of people I know, when something drops, like a 210 drops, and it's like, whoa, that's actually better than some of the raiding gear that we have right now, let's give that to the person who's actually going to use that for the next tier. That won't happen with a pug. In a pug, you should be greeting on every single thing that drops, and then trading it in for points, so you can buy glamour or materia for later, whether or not you're going to use it. So, which is fine because there's a lot of loot that comes out. But it's really more about the points, and it would be unlikely for you to maybe get some of those 210 pieces that you want, because there's only greed, right? You cannot need.
That's true.
So expect it to be kind of hard to get those 210 drops when they come, because if you're pugging, but if you're doing the content enough, eventually you'll get those pieces. But yeah, expect it not to be easy when you pug. That's one of the benefits of doing a free company. You can kind of maybe set up some loot rules so people aren't basically trading in 210 items. But honestly, if you're pugging it, I like unless you guys are very organized, when there's only a greed system, you can't really trust that item's going to go to you as it's guaranteed. And also, if you're going in as a pug and someone's loot master, that's potentially even worse. So it's so that may not be people in your free company, but if you really want the items for their item level and what the stats they bring, go with people you know and trust. Doesn't have to be a free company. It could be a group of friends or whatever, or do it in small groups and just try and just take a little bit longer to kill some of the fights, or just do the exploratory. Like find the chests that are just randomly generated throughout the map, or do gathering for points, or whatever. Just find out what you can do in a small group. But yeah, when you're going in with a big group and you don't know them, it's a total pug, you're probably greeting on everything, and I think that's totally acceptable for sure.
Cryo, so do you have a big FC?
So here's the thing. I was in a semi-big FC, and then they kind of broke up. And I decided to join my raid group's FC, which is just my raid group.
Right. So
just me and my raid group, yeah.
Okay.
And I don't think we have nearly enough supplies to have all of the airships. So that's why I personally might end up joining a different FC. But first I'm going to actually see how it works out just with our FC and the airship content, just to see if I can get some nice drops with the lower. FC ships, because I know you still have a chance to get 210, right, at the very lowest level.
I mean, you still have a chance.
And
I would assume,
you're on my server, so
yeah, I'm probably
you can join. You bum off Ark. So.
Be like, hey Ark, what's up? Airships.
I'm definitely going to be sticking out a free company that has at least 350 airships. So.
I mean, do you have enough people in your FC Ark to actually have 3 full airships?
Yes, but not at the same time. No way we'll have people on the same time. We struggle to get an alliance for 24-man content sometimes, and that's going between multiple free companies. So in this free company, there's no way we'll have a full alliance. Maybe on the first couple of weeks we might, but I still think I'll need to fill slots for sure.
Yeah.
It'll be fun to try out once or twice though, but
Yeah, and so I guess that gives a pretty good reason for people to want to be in bigger FCs. Do you think that this will be like any reason that small FCs are going to be kind of doomed? Like, hey, what's the point even being in this FC if I don't have airships that can take me anywhere?
Because again, the group, the full man 8, I very unlikely that. Well, I guess they do have the concept of alliance loot. I don't know. It depends how the loot works. My guess is that a chest drops and then every group gets a random item from that chest. But then now that I think about that, that doesn't sound right because the groups don't have to be full groups, so it probably is alliance loot. So if you go with an alliance, it probably helps that everyone from the alliance is like somebody they trust from the free company. But still, it's just people you trust, and you don't have to go with an alliance, right?
Right. I mean, you can go with a smaller group.
We don't know the full benefits of going with an alliance yet. My guess is that you just can kill more stuff and get more variety, a larger variety of things, and probably are some mobs that you would need an alliance for, especially if you don't have 210 gear already. It'd be interesting to see if an 8-man group can clear all the hardest content in that stuff. I'm sure very, very skilled players could, but will it even require very, very skilled players? That's something I'm kind of curious about. I will definitely be trying to kill those very large monsters with 8 people if I can get an attempt at it. And then I'll look at its health like going down like 1% every like 10 minutes. I'll be like, eh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also let's. I just lost my point, but basically, I was wondering when you have these connections and okay, no, I got it right. Okay, Zeno said something in here that kind of just like sparks something. You know, he doesn't. So people are going to get 210 gear, right? This is going to be a way for people to get 210 gear. I can't imagine it's going to be stronger than 210 in any way.
The loot won't be stronger than 210, but it will be if you're min-maxing with secondary stats, which isn't a bad idea to do when you're done progression for the next tier, planning for the next tier. It'll get you a good start for the first couple of bosses in the next tier. Ultimately, because of the materia system coming out, you can't meld into ethereal gear, so it's going to fall off a little bit still. But it'll definitely help you with the early fights, and for a while too. If some of them they just happen to be in slots, you're not going to replace for a while.
Yeah.
So, but it is again, it's pretty min-maxy. We're talking like you're probably shooting for server first if it really matters to you, for sure.
Yeah.
Server first.
Otherwise, you're probably not. It's not like a requirement. But it's a nice to do. Like you got 4 months to do this. You might as well try to be best at slotting yourself.
Yeah, if you're hardcore, you should be going and this is what you do: min max and materia. All right.
I don't know if I'd be able to convince my entire group to do that, but when the opportunity comes out to give them something that's best in slot, we will try to.
Yeah,
for sure. When we see like that tanking piece, like if we can get one of our tanks in like full deck crit with no parry.
No parry.
Pretty awesome. Okay, and of course some accuracy if true. For sure.
Parry is the devil.
Isn't there a good parry build out there? Right?
Can I just have like all parry in my melding?
I'm sure.
Yeah, no. You can parry like 25% of the things if you have a full parry build, right?
I don't know why you would want to do that, and it wouldn't be able to do it much on A4.
Right.
I'll parry new meta.
But you also got to keep in mind that the amount of time it would take to actually do that, and the odds, like it's totally random. Like some groups might be able to do that, but we don't know how rare 210 gear is, and also if you're going for tank gear, you're gonna get a lot of items that are probably gonna roll with parry on it quite often, and skill speed, which skill speed is not terrible if we're dropping parry, but yeah,
I'm fine with skill speed now.
It's just like I don't, you got to be careful not to go overboard with this. Like don't burn out on this content because that'd be ridiculous while you're trying to get your perfect best in slot, which is like the most perfect randomly generated loot. If you can do it, go for it, but try to have fun along the way.
I want to see the theory crafting on what is going to be the best like randomized loot for each class.
I got a point again. I gotta say it's a small difference, and you better get your server first if you work that hard to get that best slot. Or otherwise, there was no reason for you to put all that tons of effort in because you're just gonna replace that gear with high level stuff. So
Well, I mean,
Like,
another
you better be a competitive player if you're working that hard.
now. Well, I mean, now that I think about it, like really hardcore groups, they don't need more than 8 people. Okay, we got 8 people, we're great. But when you go into this content and you want to be hardcore about getting this loot, you need 24 people to guarantee you're going to get this loot.
Yeah, it's very unlikely that a 24-man alliance wouldn't be better than an 8-man if they're all equally skilled players. And I can imagine that some of the very, very hardcore players likely have a lot of people who are backing them up and have multiple groups that maybe not aren't at the same level as them, but they're still really skilled players. Bring them all together, and if that free company is like really united, they'll be feeding that one main group a lot of gear, as they should be. If they want their free company to get good ranks or clear content really quickly and be really successful, which is something that happens already with like crafted gear and materia and gathering and everything like that. So I don't think this content will be too much more different.
Okay. There was actually a pretty interesting point that you brought up that, again, I was completely blank on. You introduced this to me for the first time when we were talking to it. And I thought it was just amazing to even think about. But you said FC Primal Summons. And you think that this is a good platform for it to be implemented if it was. So can you, for the people who are not as in the know as you were about it, can you kind of explain?
Yeah, like I'm not just making this up as like speculation. The thing is that Yoshi, Yoshi has wanted to put in FC Primal Summoning into the game since 1.0. He still talks about it even just before a year before the release of the expansion. He was still talking about it in interviews how he wants to find a good system to get FC Primal Summoning into the game. And he's like, I don't know how you would capture the summon, and I don't know how you would or where you would use the summon, but I want to do it. And he still wants to do it. And this is perfect for it because we're talking about how you can maybe just outgear with a small group to kill monsters. You can outnumber them with a large group of players. Maybe you need to outgear. You have to not outgear, but be really geared and really skilled 24 people for some of this content. And maybe in the future, the alternative is you have one of these FC summon primals available, and you go in with like a group of 4 and can potentially kill a very large monster because you have this. Like maybe you can summon Odin and it one-shots one of these monsters. That wouldn't be totally broken, honestly, because this is randomly generated instance loot, and it's a really good format for FC Primal Summoning. I feel like I'm kind of suspicious that Yoshi's probably has like this plan in mind for putting it in to this content. It fits really well. It feels, because again, this content feels like open world content, and we talked a lot about why some open world content doesn't work, and in many other MogTalks and just in general why a lot of old open world content doesn't work. This is open world content this is the best that a modern MMO can do for open world content. Honestly, I don't know. I doubt that this game will ever do it, but they could totally make open world PvP versions of these instances.
That would be,
for example. But they could.
Oh my God.
It would be because there would be the PvE content that you're trying to compete for, and then in the interference of other players.
I'm on something already.
I doubt Square Enix would ever do that, but it totally fits, and it feels like open world. And that's exactly what the FC Primal Summoning was about, was summoning a primal in something that was either open world or like open world. I can't imagine FC Primal Summoning ever working outside of like something like this.
Right. And so if Yoshi wants his wish to come true, this is the best platform.
We all know that what Yoshida wants, Yoshida gets.
Yep.
Yeah. So, Cryo, can you think of the, just for fun, the best way that they could actually implement FC Primal Summons?
So, you remember you said this earlier, Frosty, but maybe it's Summoner, I don't know, could do it. Probably not, though. I mean, they would have to, it'd have to be a new skill for them, right? If they were to summon the Primal. So
you think it would just be straight on, like you have to have a summoner in your group, and then the group would have to support the summoner, or?
No. I feel like everyone in the group would have to have something, because obviously this is an FC thing, right? This isn't just a player thing. If we're talking about FC Primals, I feel like people, at least maybe in your alliance or in your group, maybe all have to have like an item of some sort, and they have to use it at the same time as summon the Primal. I haven't really thought about it too much.
It just doesn't seem like it makes sense to me, Ark. I don't know why. I'm trying to like just.
I showed you his exact quote, and he's still talking about. I'm just trying to figure out a way to do this in Heaven's Ward, and it might not fit in Heaven's Ward, but we'll yeah. This, I mean, it's very, very suspicious to me. I think this is perfect. And for my point of view, it would be similar to the limit break concept, but I think it would work like a free company action. So there would actually be free company abilities. We've seen stuff like that in WoW before, where you get free company abilities, like the mass raids and stuff like that. I think it would be a free company ability. Everyone has it on their bar. You probably have some restrictions as to who can do free company summoning, primal summoning, and you just make sure that when you go into the instance, someone has sufficient access to do that. And it probably has some check before you go in, and then you go in, and you have this bar. It's like limit break, and it's on your bar, and you can use it. And one shot something very difficult potentially, and that's not really broken or overpowered because you don't really you're just going to get something that you could have done with many other players, but it's still not. It's not like not the best thing in the game. It's just getting you an easier way to access it.
Okay.
It could potentially be the best thing in the game, but again, it's you have to farm it a lot in order for that to happen. So getting it once with a primal summon, maybe a group that's got all 180 gear can somehow manage to get a piece of 210 loot or multiple pieces of 210 loot really easily because they did the free company primal summon, which isn't so bad because that gear is really accessible when this patch comes out anyways.
Now, do you think if the FC primal summon, it's going to be a bar like you said, right? Possibly. Do you think it would take like next to near the whole time that you're in that instance, because it's going to be 80 minutes?
That'd be crazy.
No. I meant more like limit break as an action. It's a general action. I don't think there will be a bar for it. There's probably going to be there's all the work that you have to do to get the primal would have been done ahead of time, or again, Yoshi was saying that he wanted you to actually fight the primal and then you capture it as a free company. It could be potentially a whole system within airship content that a primal might appear, and then you kill it, and then you have it for that instance until that instance is over. Would be one example of it. But he definitely says you want to fight it first, capture it, and then use it later. So it could be like an event during these instances. Like sometimes the primal appears, and you can go and kill it and use it, and do some awesome stuff with it. I mean, we've seen other systems that they're putting in to this content, like the buffing crystals. To the airship content, there's randomly buffing crystals throughout the zone, and you click on them, and it gave the whole group a determination up, and it gave it for a minute, and I was like, the only way that's really good is if that determination up's like 50% or 100% more damage. So then you see a really powerful mob, and it's like, let's go find a buffing crystal. Here's the closest buffing crystal. Go and click on the buffing crystal, get everyone that determination up, and then you go and go back to the monster and fight it while you're super buffed up for a little bit. Like and then do kind of like the start of the fight, you're like super powerful because it doesn't last very long. Or you could just fight monsters around the buffing crystal. But yeah, we've definitely seen like stuff to buff your group and extra kind of little mechanics around it. So you never know.
Yeah, I am watching your dog now. By the way,
yeah,
he's being awesome. Yeah,
it's just like
he's just showing off.
Yeah. So I guess another thought to this is the buffing crystals kind of bring in a whole nother thought process to it, and so it's objective. You say, all right, well, we want to go kill this boss. Now we need to know where the buffing crystals are so we can kill it. Maybe
just kill it faster, even.
Yeah, and so that takes away restrictions from people who wouldn't be able to kill it without the buffing crystals. And I'm guessing, I don't know if maybe it buffs you to where you take less damage too as an option, and that way you can actually kill something. You can survive like a kill shot from a certain summon.
You're right. Or maybe just or you when you attack some mob with it, you put a debuff on them, that allows you to do damage to them for the rest of the fight. You just have to find it. You have to go to it within a minute or something like that. Yeah, now I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but it's not unlikely for them to be able to do stuff like that in this type of content because again, it can have that old MMO field, and they can put in these weird broken mechanics that are maybe cheesable and maybe just really annoying to deal with, and you can just say, you know what, I'm not going to fight this monster, I'm just going to go do some other content. And some groups might go in and be like, you know what, I'm going to try and get this to work properly. And that's kind of like the take it or leave it kind of content, because again, it's all randomly generated. Sometimes it'll randomly generate in a way that just makes absolutely no sense, and you're like, why would I ever do it like this? I'm just not going to do this. That would be stupid to do it that way.
Right.
And then sometimes it perfectly lines up, and it's like, wow, that actually, like, the crystal's right beside the monster. That's awesome. You can actually use it. Could you imagine like a rare monster spawning beside one of those crystals and be like, yes, and you keep going back and forth to buff up throughout the whole fight?
Right.
But stuff like that's gonna happen again. It's just like there's gonna be all these like nice situations that come up, and there could be a ton more mechanics that we don't even know about for buffing the group or events that happen throughout the instant.
I mean, and this is also something that isn't a big deal if there is a minor broken mechanic to it.
No,
I mean, if
not.
it's completely overpowered, then yeah, maybe. But if it's like a minor broken mechanic, what really are you going to achieve in the world at the very end? You're not going to get world first exploratory mission and like go on some
No,
rank board or something.
because it's all about exploration and an adventure. And as long as this content comes out with after a raid tier, it doesn't really break anything. It's just a good method of catch-up content or just alternative content to endgame rather than raiding.
Right.
Yeah, and even speaking of interesting systems, remember I was telling you about how normal mode, easy mode, normal mode, and hard mode are actually look different because they're set by time of day.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you queue it for easy mode and it's daytime. You queue it for normal mode and it's like the sunset or like twilight. And you queue it for hard mode and it's nighttime. And that kind of makes sense lore-wise. It's kind of strange because every other dungeon follows the game time. And you actually like...
Except for like World of Darkness, you know.
Yeah, stuff like... Well, yeah. But interesting enough, I was thinking for even cooler systems, because you're going to be in there for 90 minutes. I was thinking that when you go in on easy mode, you slowly see the sun set and turn into normal mode kind of thing, and then the instance ends when it's at twilight, and then you go into normal when it slowly turns into night, and you can actually see the day setting as you're running out of time for the instance. When you're doing hard mode, it eventually you see the sunrise, and then like I bet you any money that's how it works. I'm so sure.
How disappointed are you going to be when you find out that's not how?
Honestly, not that disappointed, but I'm actually kind of I'm so I'm very curious why they chose daytime to determine like outside of lore why they chose to like restrict the time of day when you're in there, because I'm like, well, if I only do hard mode, it's always going to be nighttime. But then I'm thinking, no, wait, when it's hard mode, they're probably going to like have the sunrise as the instance is about to finish and go back into the daytime phase, and it's like a cycle, right? And again, it makes sense that at hard mode is at night, right? That kind of makes sense. Like you go do exploratory missions and do hunting, you're hunting rare monsters, and you do it at night. Expect it to be more difficult at night. Like the crazier monsters come out.
Poor Cryos Cam.
If you're wondering what's happening, my phone is actually disconnecting from the internet and freezing every now and then. So
you gotta get
great.
that webcam, man. You gotta do it.
I will. I want it so bad.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to get your opinion real quick, Cryo, on the lifespan of this content, because you said that you play, as soon as you got in, you were a CT all the time. You were doing towers all the time.
I love CT, yeah.
No one else loves CT.
Apparently not.
I didn't mind CT.
I mean, when you had to go get the 3 orbs every week, how happy were you when you went back to Labyrinth to do that?
Are you talking to me about that?
Yeah, you. I want to ask you real quick.
So that's I'm biased because I actually love Labyrinth. That was by far my favorite CT.
Really?
Funny. Yeah, I love Labyrinth. Like,
Which one's Labyrinth
the
again?
music. The first one.
It's the first one with what's his face at the end, the big guy that throws the little Twizzlers on the ground and stuff.
yeah.
He has the big
Bacon
shield.
slices.
Yeah.
Oh, that one was cool.
There are a couple of reasons actually I like it the best. One was by the time that quest came out, I was so overpowered that I just like we crushed those monsters.
Right.
And the others is I love the music in that dungeon, and I love the look of the dungeon. It's always been my favorite. Now I didn't do that quest very often. I enjoyed them as the content was fresh. Is kind of more what I was saying. I didn't. There wasn't really a good reason for me to farm that content.
I farmed it because at the time when I actually did do CT, I needed 110 gear, so I needed the tomes. So I don't know if it's because I was making myself try and like it, and as a result, it's just I remember liking it, and maybe I didn't actually like it, or
You brainwashed yourself.
yeah, brainwashed myself somehow. But no, I like. Was it not Bahamut? It was the big Behemoth. Sorry, similar names. Yeah, the Behemoth fight was probably my favorite. It just amazed me that like
King
Behemoth is right in front of me. It was just awesome.
And the big meteor that you died to because you didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, like that's kind of, okay. Yeah, that pissed me off when people wouldn't get in behind the mirror. I'm like, it's right there.
It was the white point. I mean, that was like the bottleneck. Usually people would just hit that, and if there's really actually any trouble where people couldn't clear it, that's where people would drop.
And then I actually never did ST or World of Darkness.
What?
I've never done it.
What?
How does that even like become a thing?
Because I didn't have high enough gear to do it. So what ended up Happening was Heaven's Word came around. Heaven's Word came around, right? And then people stopped doing it. And I was like, I want to do ST in World of Darkness. No one's queuing for it anymore because they don't have a reason to. They have tomes that are overriding the other tomes. So why would they even do it anymore?
Yeah.
They have said, and it actually might even be in 3.1. They're gonna try and make use of that content in some way. I don't know how. Well, the problem with the roulette is it's still too many people who are probably not that interested in it with it. So even if it rewarded us, so yeah, I know you're interested. I know there's I think they said they wanted to try and reduce it down to 8-man somehow. So we'll see. I think that we're going to hear something about it in 3.1, but there's been no confirmation of it. But there's always usually in the kind of the non-rating patch. There's a ton of stuff that's kind of gone back and like makes leveling easier, makes more of the older content more interesting or more worth doing. One of that being the relic usually too when that comes out. So expect this content to come up again and have more reason to do it. I know they're adding minions for the primals that didn't have minions before, so there's going to be an Ifrit primal minion.
Yep, I saw that.
And they said they're going to add the other ones later. So
I bet those are from Lords of Verminion.
Well, they're
maybe
for
a reward.
They're for them, but I think they're from the primals.
Really? You think the primals are going to drop them?
We'll see.
All right.
I think I could agree with that what you're saying also, but I thought it was for the primals. But maybe you're right.
They got to promote it somehow. They got to give some sort of exclusive.
The Lord of Vermilion, yeah, they could give it any other minion, but like the primal itself, it should drop its own minion.
Okay. All right. And so another interesting thing about airships that I want to discuss is the fact that it's going to be kind of cross-server. And so I'm going to be seeing you out there.
Is it? Well, we're not. We think we're pretty sure. It's
How else could it be? See, they didn't declare that, but if you have something large scale and you don't cross-server it, it's going to be empty.
They made it sound like it's cross-server. They just never actually said it was. So we'll see. Because again, it's got that whole thing that's like free companies can only queue up as an alliance and stuff like that, and you queue up with undersized groups, so you don't actually, when you go like in pug stuff, you don't actually go into a duty finder and pug people from others. It's just the other groups will come in as from across server, right? But that that's not necessarily necessary to the content. If anything, that makes the content sometimes harder to do or get what you want. So we'll see. I think it will be cross server, but it's actually kind of, I don't think it's confirmed that it is. I hope it is, because then I can come and find you and steal your monsters.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, like, what about for the servers, like the really small servers, right, that don't have barely any people? So if it wasn't cross-server, then would it just be like, oh, you're queuing up for this and you're not going to be able to do it because there aren't enough people?
Well, you'll be able to probably get a group, but you'll have 8 people running around an island with no one else there.
So it's going to be really hard to do stuff.
Or even on small servers, if it was only exclusive to the server, then whenever you queue up, it would be kind of like everyone from your everyone would be in the same instance, and they would never have to make multiple instances. Well, I guess they would, depending on if you can join in one in progress, which I doubt you could. So
I'm pretty sure you can join in progress. I think because the reason I think you can join one in progress is because they said that you can go into islands and people may have already been there. And they may have already looted the stuff. But this was far back. This was far back.
No, you're right. That is true. The system ended up being totally different from what I expected it to be and I thought that when he said that was something else. But now you're right. You could get to one in progress and then just get another 90 minutes. So your group has 90 minutes, but the group before you only has 50 minutes left. Yeah, I see what you're saying now. So yeah, they will reuse instances and the monsters will respawn and everything. So that makes sense.
I mean, that would be... Well, then that would be kind of weird, too, because then, like, you're going in there, oh, well, I'm waiting 60 minutes for something to spawn, or, like, how...
Well, you've seen how many mobs are in that zone, and how hard they are to kill, and I bet the spawn time for regular mobs, or even just regular non-rare mons are probably, like, between, like, around 10 minutes, probably. So I doubt it'll be a problem.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think people who are exploring the zones are going to spend a lot of time just farm. Well, they might farm the same mob over and over and over again.
People will do a lot of things.
Which is really interesting. If anyone ever played Final Fantasy XI, that's very similar to what leveling parties feel like. You make camp and you keep farming the same monsters. In this case, it's be for loot as opposed to leveling. So that would be kind of interesting to see. Yeah, but that is a potential. Like I can imagine there'll be. That concept of like, let's find a camp of monsters that are really easy to kill and farm them as fast as we can, or for 30 minutes and try and get as much as we can, and then do some exploring and try and find a rare monster or something like that.
All right, so when we hit the lifespan, like where people are starting to get kind of bored of hunts or not hunts, I'm sorry, airships. People are starting to
Hunts
get
are
bored
now
of it.
airships.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically what it's going to be. Is that's the new thing that you go do to get more gear, and you just spam it, which is going to be airships, I think. But it's going to be a little bit more interesting than hunts, is our hopes.
I think
Oh,
what
for
they'll
sure.
do every like I don't know if you said it's Arc, but like maybe every 2 patches is they're going to update it
Right.
and maybe make it whatever the so to speak the meta of the current content is. Maybe they'll make it similar to that just to so it grows with the content, so that it doesn't really
Yeah.
have a lifespan. Ideally, right?
Well,
so we don't get burnt out.
Individual instances will have a lifespan because they have to move ahead of the item level. This content's kind of
Right.
cool because it'll last a little bit longer because you can go in with like less people and be more productive as the game progresses. But yeah, likely they'll add new islands that are entirely a new instance that will each have easy, normal mode, and hard mode to them. And like they could do old world areas as well, like maybe something above Moradana or something like they can reuse like map kind of like terrain and stuff like that from other areas. And it'll probably be something that goes on through the life of the game. And I don't know if they'll only add 1 per expansion, maybe, but likely they'll do 2 to 3 is my guess.
So you
like,
don't think it's ever going to get to the point to where people are just completely bored of it, and there's only
I
like
think-
8 people queuing up, and there's only going to be 8 people in an instance at a time?
As
I
long
think
as they
that
keep
could
adding,
happen.
it could, as long as they keep adding fresh kind of content to it. But again, because it's so RNG, it's just kind of like, what do you want to do? You know what? Let's just do some exploratory islands for today instead of farming some bosses or anything like that. And maybe it won't be done as often as it would have been when it first comes out. But I think it'll still be kept relatively fresh, and people still want to do this type of content. For some people, this might be their end game too, like long running, because the mobs will be different. They're going to have mechanics. So when you go into a new instance that has a whole fresh set of new monsters and looks different and has new areas to explore, new caves that are like very dangerous to go through sometimes, and sometimes they're not so dangerous to go through. People are definitely going to enjoy this content and want to just use it as their end game, I think.
All right, and so let's move on a little bit from airships. Let's actually see if there's any questions in regards to airships at all, or if we're just full of like troll questions here.
Can we just talk about the last 2 points real quick, or do
Which points did you want to talk about?
how it's going to be damage based in the SS?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
I
like
might be involved with
that's
it.
something quickly to talk about.
Yeah, you guys can talk. Yeah, let's.
Oh yeah. So
Go for it.
basically, normally with hunts, they had it so where you had to, get a certain aggro amount. So paladins would just like spam flash, obviously, like, and they'd be like, "Oh, I got all the content I needed for it." So now they're making it so it's damage based. So people actually have to focus on actually doing stuff and getting numbers out.
Well, and it works like how experience points do on regular mobs. As soon as you flag a monster that's purple, you have to do at least 1/3 of its HP in damage. But that's as a group contribution.
I know that.
Considering you won't be competing with considering you won't be competing with many other groups, likely it'll be a very rare situation where you're competing with more than one other group, likely, or one other alliance for that matter. You probably, if you get there when if you guys get there at the same time, you're very likely to both get the rewards from it. Of course, claiming is still important. It will guarantee you the piece of loot. If the other group, say, does a lot of damage very quickly, and you
Right.
can't do your 1/3 damage in, or if you just don't do a lot of damage in your group, maybe you just happen to be running with like a bunch of healers and tanks. It's just like how the open world works with claims and how you can experience and loot from that. So we're all familiar with it, and it'll be less crowded, so it won't come up too often. But keep it in mind, if you see a small group attacking something and you're a larger group, you can get the same credit as them from it if
Right.
you go in there and do at least 1/3 of its health.
So what do you think about SOs in airships? Arc, like, how much do you think we're going to get? Because obviously we don't want it to override expert roulette, because then people won't want to do expert anymore.
They said that it's basically totally optional if you want to try and get SO from it. It's kind of like I often say, why is there not more content in the game to farm SO as an 8-man? If my raid group doesn't like doing 4-mans, but they really need to cap for raid, I'd like to set up a day where we can just easily farm SO as a group, and this might be a good way for it. Depends how much it gives. But there's just a bunch of objectives set up, and apparently if you do 3 of them, I think it was, and you can do any 3 of them, you'll get some kind of ESO reward at the end. And that has to be I'd expect that to be at least, I don't know. Considering the content's 90 minutes long, it'd have to be above 100 for me to actually be willing to do that. But I guess since you're doing other stuff during the time of,
Yeah.
I could see it being just a little.
I mean,
bit
it's,
above
if
100.
it, I feel like it's just going to be a bonus, right? Like if you
It's
go
just a
to
bonus,
an
you're right.
A1,
Yeah,
A2,
yeah, maybe
A3,
right.
yeah.
So like 60.
Right,
If
yeah.
it gave 60 SO for just like the bonus on the side, it only as long as it only takes like nowhere. If it takes any longer than a dungeon does, then it should give more than 60. But I think 60 makes sense.
Okay. Oh, Cryo.
Just bear
Yeah.
with me.
Sorry. So Pukajitsu wanted to know how you think they'll actually justify FC Primal summoning lore-wise.
That's something that Yoshi has definitely been also struggling. Like this is like some kind of crazy dream that he has. I don't even know if I'm for the content. I don't know if it'll work very well, but I'm just saying that I know he's talked about it a lot, and he wants to like get that into the game somehow. So I bet it's going to happen eventually. How would the lore work around that? I don't know. Maybe they would probably kind of do something similar with the Eggies, where they're like some kind of lesser version of the Primal, or they're just there temporarily, or it's like some kind of a new form of a Primal, maybe some kind of new technology around something of the Primals, because considering they won't be summoners actually doing it, they'll probably make some crap up.
They'll make some crap. Yeah,
I doubt it will be very good.
The development team's like, how dare you? I put a lot of time for this lore that doesn't really mean much.
I mean, just like look at the lore behind PvP. They make some crap up, right? So, I'm pretty sure I killed a lot of people for grand companies. They say they fainted, but I'm not too sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess like one good way to do that is you, just like maybe Shiva was, right? It wasn't really she was kind of Shiva, but wasn't really. It was just a person who embodied.
You take over the yeah, and again, like I said, it might be some kind of like it's again a new type of technology that you build within your free company, and it's like it only consumes the ether that you have established for it within this thing. It shows up for a very short amount of time, does attack, and then disappears because it can't consume any ether within the world. So it's like, again, my guess it would be some kind of new technology within the game, and it probably will have some good, decent lore behind it, and I'm sure the summoners will be involved lore-wise, but actual players playing summoners, it won't be required. It'd be interesting if they force summoners to have to be in the group to do it, but I really don't think they'd do that.
All right. So another question we have, Mudslide asked, everybody, if you could personally get any theoretical item from item exploration, whether it's gear, pets, crafting, whatever, what would be something that would drive you to do that? What is the item? You're like, I have to get this one item.
A larger warrior axe.
I was thinking that because the glamour is randomized, that I'm wondering how randomized it is. Like, can you get a black mage hat, but it's ninja gear?
That would be amazing.
Like, basically mix and match AFs.
Oh, that would be cool.
Makes absolutely no sense. Or does it even go into like the weird like event glamour as well? Can you get like a fat chocobo head that's like 210 and has like is best in slot? Yes. Like I would love anything's in that category would just make my day. AF that's mixed up and is on the wrong class, which they probably won't do because that's just terrible to people who get AF. Right. But if more likely I want to see a fat chocobo head drop is like best in slot for someone.
Right.
And it's like, well, you're gonna use that, so are you gonna glamour over it? I don't even know if you can glamour over this.
What if you couldn't though? Like,
well, the interesting thing about the gear is that it comes with a glamour on it, and I doubt you can remove the glamour. So can you glamour over top of that glamour? Maybe, probably not though. Maybe.
Well, is it a glamour or is it just a model?
When they looked at the when I looked at the content, it's like this ethereal gear, and it's like it has a really generic icon, and it when it dropped, it was flashing. It was like, here's this loot, and then it alternated between the text of what the glamour was on it before anyone put it in their bag. So it looked like a system similar to what's in a glamour. I don't know if it's basically.
I mean, you could do clear prisms, but
well,
I don't
what
know.
would a clear prism to? Like nothing.
Yeah.
Maybe you can remove the glamour and
Glamour
it just
dispeller.
goes to something. Maybe
Like
it just goes
boring.
to something very ugly and generic. Yeah, that is a possibility. So who knows? But then that also means that you couldn't use them as a glamour, which would suck.
yeah.
Which I guess you might not be able to do even if it is a glamour. So we'll see. But that's how I definitely know that it drops like that. It drops with like the flashing text, like what glamour items look like. So I don't know what restrictions are going to be around that. But yep, maybe you will have to. Well, at least you can turn off the head display. But some people might enjoy that chicken head. Yeah. There could even be Mog heads that drop their best in slot for machinists.
No need.
Maybe.
I mean, who else needs a Mog head besides me?
Those type of things would make my day. It's just something so ridiculous. It's like, what?
Yeah.
I think they should also drop. Well, I don't know if they would. Maybe just the really rare monsters, but I want them to drop mounts at least.
They drop minions. I would imagine some of the very rare ones would like.
Maybe in the future.
No, I
If
think
not now.
I wouldn't be surprised if they drop mounts, man. Honestly,
That would be great. I would love new mounts. I love mounts in general.
Do you want a mini game based around mounts?
But I did.
No.
I did say that some of these monsters you may not see very often. It's like this mount I really, really want, and I
Bismarck mount.
Yeah. So maybe likely a lot of the stuff they'll have alternatives to get it if it's very hard to get through RNG, but it might come up later in the game. So we'll see.
Okay. Shut up, Pook. All right. So materia melding is also another thing that I want to go into. It's not coming in this expansion. It's coming in 3.2. But a focus from 3.1 is going to be, if you already have all your gear, go in and get materia. And the reason you want to do that is because of the changes they're doing also in materia melding for 3.2, because it's going to be materia is going to be very valuable. It's going to be completely different than what it was before.
Yeah. Did we talk about I guess we didn't talk about the point system. Just quickly, in case anyone didn't know about the point system, when you gather stuff in the airship content and you get loot that you don't really want, I did kind of touch on this a little bit, I think, but you can trade in pretty much everything you do with airship content in for some kind of new point system. And with that point system, you can get, I know for sure you can get glamour, and like Frosty just said, you can get materia up to materia 5 from it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So between tiers, I know for sure that I'm going to be farming this content regardless of best in slot, because I don't like if a best in slot item drops for me, I'm going to try and get it. But if it doesn't, I'm going to be turning everything in outside of stuff for off spec, maybe too, for materia and farming as much materia as I can between this patch and the next tier.
Right.
So that's something that, like, as a raider, keeps me very interested in this content.
Exactly.
As also someone who wants a lot of money.
Potentially too. I think the value of material will go down. So again, it's
Yeah, they
it's
will.
Yeah.
and then I don't know if considering that in 3.2 they're saying that materia is going to be on raid gear, which means that a lot of people are like, oh man, I'm going to have to spend a lot of money on materia. It's awesome that that basically this airship content has enabled the first step into some kind of specialization in a raid tier. And it's very minor. It's just based on secondary stats and some primary stats. It depends how the melding actually works on raid gear. Mm-hmm. This information is there's very little behind it, and there's probably mistranslations with it. Mm-hmm. But this airship content actually enabled material. Like you can spirit bind while you do airship content. They said that you spirit bind extremely fast when you do it, so you can do that and do the just trade in points and get material. But basically, material is a crap ton more accessible. Very, very accessible now, and it makes it so melding material into raid gear is actually a lot more practical. You can make mistakes with it. I'm hoping that with raid gear it's more about basic melding and not about advanced melding. So you're not trying to maybe you can't even advanced meld raiding gear. It's just like slots, and you have a 100% chance for every single slot. And when you want to change stuff, you just remove it, and you only do one materia for each slot. That's what my hope is for it. Just for time, for the sake of time consuming. I don't want to have to mess around with it as I get different drops and stuff like that. But it could really be anything. But again, the airship content has enabled this type of specialization, and it also shows that Square Enix is interested in giving you some kind of choice, a lot more choice in a progression raid tier, which does break balance a bit. And the next tier might be a little bit broken because of this materia system. It might be too easy. It might be too hard because they expect you to do it correctly. We'll see, or they might assume you do it wrong, and the content might be too easy. But again, it shows that Square Enix isn't afraid to start dipping its feet into specialization, and we might see in the future set bonuses come out after they see how this kind of specialization stuff comes into play. Again, this is a very small stepping stone, but again, I think it's the direction they're going is let's experiment with this. Then we're going to do set bonuses that slightly alter the class. Then maybe they'll do some kind of full out class specialization, personally, I think they'll do sub jobs at some point, but that could be that's like a discussion.
I mean, this is goes straight
could-
down.
Way 4.0.
sub job. I could talk about sub jobs in this game forever. But I think that's the direction they're going to take it ultimately for specialization in this game. I don't think they're going to do like skill trees for classes. I think they're going to do sub jobs. But I think this is just a step towards that direction to some specialization. There's no chance that I'm right about sub jobs, but something's coming up eventually, and they're moving towards it. They're showing that they're comfortable with it.
They're comfortable with actually giving us an option to choose between what we actually pick, right?
Yeah,
Instead of just you like our attributes. Okay, all strength, all vitality, all determine.
Some classes
only
did have
strength.
some choice. Some classes did have some choice. Like for sure, tanks have had some of the most choice, and to some extent, healers could decide if they want to be more powerful at healing or have more potential for DPS. Tanks had do they want to have a higher HP pool to make it easier on healers, a little bit easier on healers to react depending on who's in your group, or do they want to focus more on damage? And because they were using a lot of crafting gear, they also had a lot of choice of secondary stats in some cases as well. So there was a little bit more choice, but it was only between those classes, and it wasn't done very well. Also, it kind of, in some cases, it favors people who have a lot of money or even just a lot of time, because melding that stuff takes some time, especially when it's fresh, like it's just at the start of the progression tier. So I think this materia change could be nothing but good, really. And it's a step in direction towards some kind of choice on gear, and it breaks balance. And Square Enix is showing that they're comfortable with breaking balance a little bit.
Breaking the mold.
And this is a small break to balance too. Again, it's just I don't know which direction they're going to go. Are they going to make content too hard, or are they going to make it too easy? It's going to be one of the two things.
It's going to be too.
It's going to be too hard.
I could probably no. I'm going to put my money on it's going to be too easy.
I think it's going to be too hard. I think they're going to.
I think it's going to be too medium.
I think they're going to expect everyone to actually like
Just
DPS, put vitality in their gear and stuff like that, or you have to work around not putting vitality into your gear, and have that extra 20 or 30 DPS from doing all secondary stats. So we'll see.
20 DPS though.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like
it does matter early to just like an extra 2,000 HP might matter when you're doing early progression.
2000 HP, yeah.
well, Cryo. So you have some melded gear right now because you're a warrior. It wouldn't make sense if
Right.
you didn't have melded gear.
I have 2 pieces of crafted, yeah.
Right. So does it kind of excite you to think that every piece of your gear you're going to have some materia probably to put in there, or is that something that you're actually kind of not looking forward to?
So, I kind of had to do crafted materia because in the early levels of Savage, it's kind of what people did. They didn't have all the 210 and everything. It wasn't really as much of a fan because I'm poor. I am a fan if what they're doing with crafted gear and melding, if it's going to be a lot more accessible to people, a lot easier for us to do what we want. That's what I would be happy about. Not if I had to spend like millions of gil, because I don't have that.
Yeah, and also when you get a new drop, it's like, oh, okay, well now I'll do the melding to this piece.
Yeah, now you have to remeld everything just to get the right accuracy for the fight.
Yeah. I'll be okay with that only if advanced melding is not used with raiding gear or materia is like dirt cheap, or just the percentage is higher to do. So, and I do want to just like from what we know so far, they said that this is like the actual line they said is that you cannot meld primary stats. You cannot advance meld primary stats into crafting gear and accessories. Now, I would like clarification on that because maybe I'm just not understanding the sentence properly. But to me, it sounds like no crafting gear. You cannot advance meld primary stats into any crafting gear. And does that mean and also all accessories or all crafting accessories? So I could go either way with that one. Maybe all raiding accessories you can't advance meld primary stats into it, and then advanced melding primary stats into left-sided gear doesn't really make sense anyways. Can't really think of any person like except outside of piety for healers.
Dark Knight Piety.
There's everything that you want is actually capped up. Yeah, you could, like, for all we know, right?
It's gonna happen.
And on that, and again, advanced melding means that you're melding past the number of sockets you have. It could also mean that raiding gear has more sockets, so you're doing more basic melds, like I was talking about earlier. So it's always 100% chance, and you can never advance meld into your gear. It's just only by sockets, and you can't advance meld into raiding gear, and you can do primary stats, which would be very good. And yeah, like
I mean, one of the main reasons they said they were doing this was simply because they wanted to raise the eye level on the items.
crafting gear. Oh, crafting gear.
Yeah, and so they wanted the
Yeah.
crafting gear not to feel so weak because it has a lower eye level.
Because you can meld into
So
it.
visually, it looks like it's a better item.
Likely, if you have the money to get crafted gear, when you enter a tier, it probably would benefit you, but it would be also extremely difficult to do. But it does make crafting gear is a good entry set of gear. It'd probably be some of the best entry set of gear. My guess is likely to the equivalent of unupgraded SO or whatever the new token will be, a gear. So like in this case, crafted gear would potentially be eye level 200, maybe 190, but my guess is it would be 200. It's just very hard to make.
Right.
So yeah, and some groups would, and that could either up the gear check requirement, but I'm sure this gear is not easy to make.
Oh yeah, it's going to be expensive.
And not to mention, and so it's like it's just kind of a way to get past. If you're a very very skilled group, it's a good way to get past gear walls through other means.
Right.
Without waiting for SO, without waiting for the drops to happen, because you're trying to get through that content really quickly. This is actually not a bad thing.
No, it adds a lot more depth.
Top tier groups being geared wall is stupid. It is.
It is.
It's a very sucky feeling. It's like we're willing to put the amount of time into this. We're willing to like do whatever it takes to get this done, and you're basically giving us no options, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, and that's a world I don't live in, and I'm not even close to that world. So
Right.
I could be totally wrong in what their opinions are on it, but I doubt they like hitting gear walls. I'm sure they would prefer to just raid a lot in like 2 weeks and be done with it.
Yeah.
Right. And then like build up all the crafted gear before. Like that's probably what people are going to do.
Build
So
up money
before a
in
tier.
max. They would need like an end game set of crafters and gatherers to do it for when the tier came out if they want to get it done as fast as possible, which is that's kind of an interesting like set of end game for crafters.
It makes crafting like more desirable as well. So.
Yep, and it's all gear that's accessible over time, and it's not better than raiding gear. But again, we'll see how this melding thing works. Just keep in mind, the information is very low. And it's not very clear.
We're taking all this data from it that we don't even know about. And
We're taking this from like...
It's one thing that's kind of makes me... I'm a little bit... like that I might be wrong about how the melding works with raiding gear is the fact that they said they are going to change how tanks benefit from certain stats to do their damage. And I was like, okay, that's interesting, because if raiding gear, for example, raiding accessories had like 3 open sockets, when a fending piece dropped, you could put a bunch of strength in there and potentially max out the strength with, or come close to maxing out the strength with Materia 5, if it had like 3 or 4 sockets to it. Or even if there was no restriction to primary stats on raiding gear, you could just meld it into max out. Or if strength gear dropped, then you can meld a bunch of vitality into it, and that would solve all the problems that we're having currently about those items not being very useful. So,
right.
And also already we know that this is amazing for healers because they can just meld accuracy into anything.
Oh wow, yeah.
So they don't have to
That's
like
true.
I was already getting into debates with my healer. Like he was thinking of not using any new weapons once he's like if his relic was a lower eye level and it had accuracy in it. He was like, I'm not going to use any better weapons. I'm like, I wonder if that's actually better or not than using crafted gear with accuracy in it, because then we lose limit break damage and you do a lot less healing and damage from the weapon damage loss. And it's like might break even. I don't know. And I was like kind of worried that I didn't really know how to approach that. And it's like, no, you just meld accuracy into your gear now, your gear, and
It's
done.
take the best weapon you can get and meld accuracy into that weapon even. So
Yeah.
Meld accuracy and everything.
So I think this is nothing but good for so many reasons. So
It is. It really is. It adds a lot of depth to the game.
and if you guys are worried about money, the airship content should take care of.
Yeah,
the
that's your money source right now. If
Very poor.
you
Money
suck as a
source
crafter,
money,
airship.
money or a source of getting the raw materials to do, or essentially the materia.
Right.
So do a lot of airship content and start collecting a lot of materia.
Yeah.
So the airship content has enabled this whole thing, because we were all dreading the day that we had to start doing this. Like we all know WoW, where a piece of gear drops and it's like, okay, I'm gonna go put the correct gems in here, enchant it, and reforge it to the stats I want, and then I have to reforge a bunch of other stuff on my gear now and move gems around because I've screwed up my stats slightly. Oh, okay, now I got it. Yeah, so I hope it doesn't turn into that. Right now we're only talking about essentially the gem system that WoW has.
Right.
And I hope that, again, it's basic melds and it's something that we can do very quickly. We don't have to worry about, like, advanced melding.
That's asking too much. They're gonna throw something in the mix that we didn't expect, and it's just gonna make things too difficult.
It's mostly just the time it'll take to micromanage that gear.
Yeah.
If they have advanced melding, if they do advanced melding, dang well better be like at least 30%. At least 30% for the final slot.
Right.
At least. I don't care about the money. I care about the amount of time it takes to meld that crap. And I'm not a crafter, so I have to take someone else's time. I have to take someone else's time up to meld that stuff. So I'm considering
Kerr. I'm so sorry, Kerr.
So hopefully they take that into consideration. I'll be one of the people front in line complaining about the amount of time it takes to meld this gear every time I get a new drop. If they do put advanced melding in, I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna complain about it.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's good for airships and melding and all that for right now. Let's actually take a peek and see if there's any more questions at all about airships that might have came in. Nope, we're good. All right, cool. I just want to make sure we didn't miss anything too crazy before we went on to the next subject. All right. So I want to move on a bit, and I know talking to both of you guys, Lords of Verminion is not on the top of your priority list. For
so excited.
You guys,
after 3 months of airship content, I might check it out.
Okay. So it's not the big that you guys aren't like, oh my god, this new minigame is going to just change my life.
Not even going to be in a static anymore. I'm just going to be like, sorry guys, I got to dedicate my life to Lords of Vermilion.
MLG Pro.
I only believe someone who says that who already has a crap ton of minions, because
I have 40 minions, but I'm still going to be the best.
I think I have 1 page of minions, which isn't even 20.
One page, yeah, me too.
Oh well, nice.
Yeah,
maybe one and like 2.
I'm not even close.
Oh man. All right. Well, I want to talk about it for a second, anyways. We don't have to dive too deep into it.
This is the bulk of MogTalk tonight is Village of Vermilion.
Yeah, you thought that was a big portion of the show. We're here for 5 hours. Okay. So there are two factors that this minigame is actually bringing outside of the game just itself. One, they're introducing the rank system, which will help pair players with other players of similar ranks. The other one is that it gives you a tournament. So they're giving you a tournament that actually plays with other players, but I'm a little bit confused how all that stuff's going to work out. All of this adds into a step ladder that allows people to climb up, kind of incentivize them playing the game and actually wanting to be the best at the game, because there's something that says, hey, you're the best at the game. And so, I mean, you're probably going to have the people who are really good, then you'll have the people who cheat, then you'll have the people who play casually. Mm-hmm. But the people who cheat are not on top. And so, I mean, it's kind of weird. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a hard game to grasp. It is a rock, paper, scissors, like Barbaron said. It's like rock, paper, scissors, plus one other minion who's neutral to everything. So you kind of, it has a little bit of thought to it, but it's not going to be too crazy. But we'll see when it comes out.
I'm gonna laugh if this is like the opposite of like pro MLG. It's gonna be like just so mindless.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I actually don't care about the game. I mean, the game looks fun. It looks like if they implement it well, it's going to be a real fun game. But what I am really curious about is the systems it's bringing with the ranking system and how they're doing the tournaments. Because it eliminates a lot of abuse that we're seeing in Triple Triad.
Right.
And so, just real quick, even though both of you guys are not invested in the minigame currently, knowing that there's going to be kind of a fair system with ranking and going in for tournaments and everything, does that entice you a little bit more than like Triple Triad or Chocobo Racing did?
I never really was into any of that to begin with, but I am going to try Lords of Vermilion just because it looks unique. It's not something I've ever really seen in an MMO before. I've seen maybe card games, and I've seen obviously racing and other MMOs, but I've never seen this type of thing with minions.
I mean, it's not like Pokemon. It's a little bit different than that. It's like it's like a little bit of an RTS, and so it's kind of interesting.
Funny how you brought up rock, paper, scissors and then said it wasn't like Pokemon.
Well, it's not like, well, in that regards, you have that as a factor. Yeah. But I mean, the fact that you're sending minions across the board and then you're actually making them go attack towers or you're making them go attack other things, this is a lot more in depth than Pokemon.
Yeah.
Let's just say I'm going to give this a chance.
Right.
And then if I don't like it, I'm never going to play it again.
Okay, that makes sense. Ark, are you any more interested in this game than you were with the other two?
No, I actually will definitely check it. I love the music from the game, obviously.
Oh yeah, the rave music.
That'll get me into it for sure. I'm definitely gonna check it out just so I can actually understand how the rules work and how the game works, and I'll probably get that through the training and the non-player kind of modes they have, which is a ton of them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as far as like the ranking part, I probably won't be driven to try and be the best at
Ark's
it.
gonna be the top in Diablos.
I don't know if many people will be. I hope. Now I know that they want the rank. They want to test their ranking system. They want to They want to test their tournament system and their ranking system so they can apply it to other things like potentially chocobo racing,
Right.
triad, and PvP in general. And I hope they
Chocobo
get enough.
racing.
I hope they get enough data out of
That's
this. I hope they get enough data out of this, and people are interested enough to test it out because, yeah, like I don't like. Who cares if people start cheating this system? People will care if they start cheating the other things, though, where there's like better. Well, actually, there might be minion prizes from this one, but in general, mostly just PvP. If people they don't, if this is a good time for them to test out systems that they could apply to PvP and see where it's broken and fix it before they apply it to PvP, because PvP is going to likely reward loot, which is a bigger deal when you can cheat to get that loot.
Right. Well, I mean, like that's actually the main reason I think it's important is because it's introducing these two systems to test out,
Yeah, right.
and so we're hoping this stuff will eventually flood into like triple triad or PvP. And if this gets like there's an actually legitimate way to be good at the game and people are trying to be good at the game, it's encouraged that people are actually going out there theory crafting, thinking how can I actually be really good at this mini game or really good at PvP. That means that it can add it to a competitive. Well, it might not be MLG or anything, but it's competitive.
No, it's gonna be MLG.
You'll be at the
Wait,
top
it's
of
gonna be on the
something.
top of the Twitch boards.
I'd be very surprised
Lords
if
of
Lord of
Vermilion.
Vermilion became MLG.
It could be a FanFest championship. You go up there?
FanFest,
Yeah.
FanFest, that's fine. MLG,
Yeah,
maybe
FanFest, I
not.
could see that.
So they'll have all these at FanFest. You go in there and you win Titan graphics cards if you win
wow, I
championship.
better get
be
ready
awesome.
and get pro so I can get my Titan graphics card.
Yeah, I can't imagine that'd be like a huge prize. But I mean, if they could actually make something actually serious that they can bring in, and going to that last FanFest, I would love it if they had these mini games up there. I don't know if I'd be able to see a lot of different things at the festival because I'm sitting here trying to beat these other people at the game because I want to say, yeah, I'm champion. Go up on stage and get my little paper certificate saying I'm #1 triple triad. But I mean, like, that's actually making me interested, and I don't know. So that's my thoughts on it. So that's why I'm trying to bring it up right now. It's just because I think that them implementing this and making systems more competitive will bring something else out there. Do you guys think that any of the content they ever create will end up having some sort of high-level rewards and like real competition in there? I mean, PvP. Do you think this will kind of encourage them to start balancing that out a little bit more? And
Maybe.
I think arena PvP will become
Yeah.
something. It's really, I mean, balancing wise, it's difficult, but WoW never really did a good job balancing it either, so I don't really expect it to be balanced.
Balancing in multiplayer games in general is just a hard concept.
It's not always there. And you just got to deal with like things that are unbalanced. You find these strategies around it, and you just kind of play around it as well, or play the things that are overpowered. In some cases, you're really trying to be competitive in PvP. I was just thinking of druids in particular, and WoW.
I love druids.
They just run around until the game ended.
That was my favorite thing about being a druid.
Terrible,
Wow.
terrible, terrible. I think they fixed that, but I hope they
Yeah.
fixed that by now. I'm sure they did. But anyways, I think for sure that PvP will eventually, arena PvP in this game will eventually become a little bit more competitive. It will be the biggest competitive thing in the game eventually.
I mean, it might take another expansion or two, but
we'll see. I think just as soon as they add in a ranking system and rewards for doing the ranking system, it'll become pretty good. And they just have to do something even similar to what WoW had originally, or something just small. But again, the content's actually not too bad, and you already see people doing like the Ether tournament that's been going on, and things like that. Like they want this type of content, and that in the arenas, our fun is just there's no reason to do them at all. There's no reason to do Wolf's Den at all, and also it's level frickin' 50, so.
Joe would
maybe-
disagree with you.
But he thinks that
He
people
loves
wanted-
Wolf's Den.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't say people. No, I'm saying people love it. I'm just saying that there's no reason.
Oh.
to
right
do
now
it.
there isn't. In 3.1, hopefully they're
No, there
bringing in
definitely is
like
Yeah,
60.
they need to outside of for fun, and that's great. But also, it's level 50 right now, and they need to move it up to 60, and they need to reward the players who are doing really well.
They are doing that, right? 3.1? Didn't they say something about
Not 3.1. It sounds like 3.2.
I was
Okay.
hoping 3.1 as well, but nothing was mentioned about
Well,
it.
again, the Lords of Vermilion is to test some of the systems that we're just talking about this, right? Like they don't want to
You're
add
right,
in stuff
you're
that's
right.
potentially broken. They're also working on a
a good point.
spectator mode for Lords of Vermilion. They confirmed that they're working on spectator mode, which would be great for Arena as well to be able
For
to watch.
MLG content.
I mean,
yeah.
it would also be really good if they introduced PvP in Wolfenstein before they started an actual real season of PvP, because then they can actually say, oh, here's some things that are really critical. So if they ended at 3.1, it would still be a good spot to put it.
I'm sure when that system comes in, where there's potential tournaments, it'll definitely be like here's Wolfden at level 60 with the potential of becoming a tournament, and here's the rewards at the end. So start collecting your PvP gear and everything, and in a month we'll start the season in a smaller sub patch. That's likely for sure they're going to do that because they have to make sure that everything's stable,
Right.
especially on the first time they do it. But I'm sure there'll always be a delay before the season starts. It's going to come. They're definitely like the arena PvP is not. Like, it's hard to balance it, but it shouldn't be too hard for them to implement it. And people are going to find it interesting in their own way.
Yeah. yeah. Okay, good. Sorry, my voice went crazy there for a second. And there's also something else I want to talk about with Lords of Vermilion. From my understanding, players will queue up with each other through a duty finder-like system, or at least that's the only way I can really imagine it happening.
Me, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Does this mean that players will be facing any player from their same data center? And would that mean like the tournaments are considered cross-server as well? I mean, how that'd be good.
It has to be not broken. It has to be cross-server. And you need a larger player base for the queues not to be forever. I mean, again, if it's anything but that, then it's Wolf's Den again, and before the expansion, Wolf's Den again, where just people don't queue up for it because the queue times took forever and no one was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Needs to be cross-server, and again, obviously incentive to do it. So I'm confident it's cross-server, and they're going to have some. Again, if there's ranking points, there's going to be some ranking system that makes it so you can't cheat, or at least it'd be extraordinarily difficult to cheat in win trade.
Mm-hmm.
You need like multiple people win trading to move you up to the top, which does happen. It does happen. But it's like a lot of work.
Well, I mean, right now, all you really have to do to win trade for Triple Triad is log on as soon as the servers come up, and
yep,
you win.
but that system's like very, very basic. There'll be nothing like this one.
Yeah.
Because this is gonna make it so you can't queue up with your alt or some other P person.
to give someone at level.
Because it's going to be using the rank points to determine who you queue up with.
Yeah.
And if there's a larger amount of people to queue up with, they can also like make it so you're unlikely to play the same person again for a little bit, or you can't play the same person for a bit. Right. So we'll see. It does require a lot of people to be involved for it not to be totally broken, for sure.
It just seems so weird that they would do a tournament cross-server. Like, how would you have the same thing with Triple Triad where you have a board and you're just like, here's all these other people from these other servers and they're ranked?
I mean, they could do the tournament the same way they do it with Triple Triad. They just have to make sure they use a ranking, like a separate set of ranking points for the queuing up.
Hmm.
So it won't be like a elimination tournament or anything. That'll be a tournament as in first, exactly how Triple Triad works for certain set of time, maybe even limited number of games, which could be possible. But you try and score as many points as you can with this limit of games or in this limited amount of time, for when you're doing tournament games. Except that again, they're going to use ranking points to try and prevent players from cheating it.
Okay.
Which is something that Triple Triad does not have right now.
Okay. So, all right. I'm done. My hope for being Gold Saucer champion of the world will be on hold until we see all of this stuff.
No
turns
more
out.
Lords of Vermilion. I thought we were talking about this for like 5 hours.
I wanted to, before I forget, because we're on the topic of Gold Saucer very, very loosely.
Yeah.
But, I wanted to mention that fun fact about the fact that the 2 new mini games that are going into the game, you saw them in the trailer, where they're hitting they're doing some mining or botness.
Right.
That's actually
older content.
That's actually the they're reintroducing the exact same systems for mining and botanists that were in 1.0 as mini games in the Gold Saucer now.
Was that fun?
They were just basically mini games. They weren't. Well, they weren't. I don't know if they're. I can't say for. I never did them, so I can't say if they were. I can't say if they were fun or not back in 1.0 when you were actually trying to get loot from them. But if you go and pick them up and say, "Oh, this is what people had to do when they were doing gathering in 1.0," that's interesting. And then you kind of put it down and walk slowly farther away. I don't know.
Yeah, like
But it is kind of interesting. They reused that old content, and they did feel like they were mini games essentially. So now they actually are mini games. Yeah, I know. Easy. She just like messaged in chat too. That she definitely did the botanist for sure. I remember talking to her about it at one point, and when we were doing 1.0, I was like, "So how exactly does it work?" And it's like, "I'm not. I think it's just hot and cold. I'm not totally sure though if there's anything else going on. Sometimes random things happen."
Yeah, you have to like test it out or something.
Yeah, it was weird.
All right. Well, is there anything else you guys want to talk about with Gold Saucer? By the way, I was just going to try to keep it because I could go on for a while.
Oh yeah, we're probably gonna wrap it. I just thought that was
the most excited about Gold Saucer content. I've never done any of it except for maybe Cactpot.
I mean, what other game has like? I mean,
amusement
WoW
park?
didn't really, and basically an amusement park with all these little mini games and stuff that you could be semi-competitive with, like Chocobo Racing and Triple Triad. And
like
Can I
again,
ride Nightmare like in that one quest? Can I ride Nightmare like put in like at one guild and then my character sits on it and just goes back and forth for like 1 minute?
yeah.
As a minute.
I
You have
think-
to stay on it.
Well, I mean, like,
it is like Final Fantasy 14 definitely pushes the boundaries of a modern MMO, and is trying new stuff out. And the amusement park is something that's very unique to them. And I've already said that exploratory content is the reintroduction of all the great things about old MMOs without all of or most of the bad stuff. So this is just something about Final Fantasy 14 is like they're pushing the boundaries. Sometimes they're going to totally screw it up, and sometimes they're going to do pretty well.
like Triple Triad, but Triple Triad.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and again, it's something you're going to work on and make really good. I hope that Chocobo Racing becomes better again. Actually, I loved it. The only thing that was hard with is that if people leveled ahead of me, I couldn't play with my friends anymore.
Yeah.
Some of the people took it too seriously, and it's like, I don't have a Chocobo to play with you anymore. Well, that sucks. Oh, let's do the free range one. Okay, you just move like 5 times faster than me. Interesting.
Yeah. They should do like a rank sync or something.
A level syncing, rank sync, and it's just and you can pick any, even the difficult maps and stuff. And it just syncs you to the minimum for that map. Yeah, that would be great because I actually do like Chocobo Racing. The only reason I don't want to do it is because I just can't, like, all the people I play with are like all over the place now. So
Yeah. All right. Well, there was a handful of things that actually came into the patch or the live letter that I thought was very interesting to talk about. And I just want to do a quick shout out to Duty Commenced. A lot of the information that we're talking about on the show is stuff that I picked up from the North American team, the North American Final Fantasy 14 team. They do their own podcast called Duty Commenced.
Yep.
And they gave a lot of really cool information out in their Duty Commenced in '09, and I would really appreciate it. And what they're doing is great.
Yeah, like just to reiterate on that. I've watched a lot of those before. Half the time, no good information in them. It's like they sometimes give information worse than the live letter did. This one that we watched, Duty Commenced 9, if you're interested in a lot of information about it, definitely go and check out their watch the video again, because they actually had more information in it than the live letter and more clarification and more footage. Like if there is a lot of footage of the airship content. Like I'm not just like magically knowing about the times a day and some of the like there's star rank monsters that I never knew
T-Rex.
about. Well, yeah, and T-Rexes. So yeah, like there's the ranking system 1 to 6, and there's star ranks that are around the zone too, which are the rare monsters that we're talking about. I was like, there are star ranks? What?
Yeah.
And the buffing crystals and all stuff. This is all from the Duty Commenced stuff. All unique information, very, very, very good. So definitely check it out if you guys are interested in seeing some of that footage and stuff.
I mean, when you see them like post up, "Hey, we're going to do Duty Commenced," try to make an effort to watch it because it's they're doing a really good job with it right now.
From now on, I will, because every time I went to it before, I was disappointed, and it seems like now they're actually doing a really good job of giving information. And going through the live letters and stuff. So yeah, it seems like it's going to be better from now on. So
yeah, and another factor too is, these guys, they're our middleman. They kind of help us out with stuff. They're not really too responsible for like hot scoops or anything else and giving us all this information, but it's nice to see that stuff's starting to be like introduced into their shows. But I mean, anyways, just want to give a shout out to them.
awesomely done.
Yeah. The other thing is, well, one thing I learned from that is the Vanyu quest, how they're actually going to put a level adjustment feature in there. So basically, if you're level 60 and you go and get the Vanyu quest and you have a level 51, but you want to actually get that level 51 leveled up, you can get the quest as a level 51 and get experience for it. It will adjust to your level. So I might actually do the Beastman tribe stuff now.
That's this one of the most smartest things they've done. They need to add. Sorry. They do a very, very intelligent thing they did, but they do need to add content. As they add in new content, they should consider leveling how the like leveling at low level stuff is like, and it's like, you know, if they did that with the old Beastman tribe dailies, where it's like, oh, here's an alternative route to leveling up, and you do the Beastman tribe dailies at the same time, that's awesome. It's like I'm leveling a class. Like people like to double it when I want to like I would love to be able to cap as I level my character. I'm leveling a character. That'd be great. I would love to always be able to do something else while I'm doing something with my character. And the Beastman Tribe dailies scaling to your level and giving you an alternative route to gain a little bit more experience as you do the dailies is amazing. That's such a great idea, and I'm sure they're going to do that with all the future ones too. And I hope they do that with the old ones too. That's really, really awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm hoping that they start to apply this system to other content. Cryo, can you think of any other content that can really apply that type of system where it just syncs up and you can level up your alts while doing it?
Other than the Vanu quests?
Yeah, other than like Beastman quests. Is there like anything else that kind of works out like that?
I don't
I'm kind of putting you on the spot because I just... Sorry.
That's fine. That syncs you up with?
Yeah, so basically, like right now the Vanu quest, you can just go in there as a little 51 and do your Beastman dailies and level an alt. So, like, is there any other features currently that you think you could see that applied to? Crafting? Will you level up your crafter when you're doing crafting?
Yeah.
So you want to level up your blacksmith and your warrior at the same time?
That would be great. It's like you do like a smithing hammer, and you hit a monster, and they turn into like a piece of metal or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
To answer your question, to a lesser extent, it's Fates and the hunt logs currently do that as well, and that's why I'm actually really happy with both those systems for leveling alt characters, especially the hunt logs. They scale to your level. Well, actually, the mobs don't scale to your level, but you should be able to.
Yeah, because they're just.
You can kill them with a chocobo. So.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that they're doing that though, just because it makes it a lot easier for you to do the content to level up.
I want them to add more things into content. Like again, the game is about leveling other classes on the same character. I want them to make that content better as I level up. If I was to go and level up a new job from level 1, I want that experience to feel more fun. I don't care if it's faster or slower. I just want it to be more fun. I've already said like many times, I want rare monsters that if I see a rare monster, I kill it and I get this massive experience boost, or some little buff, or some gear even in the open world while I'm leveling up my low level characters, and they're all scaled to be in like a low level. And stuff like that, and daily quest is good. We have the leaves, but the leaves don't really use much of the zone for whatever reason. So, I love that they're considering other characters and other classes and making it so you can double dip on what you're doing as you level up and all. That's really good. They should keep that up.
Yeah.
The
other cool thing that they're adding in is demolishing houses. And again, I love the fact that, it's 45 days after 3.1 gets launched, which is going to be exactly on Christmas. And so everyone that doesn't go into their house, they're going to lose their houses on Christmas. So we've talked about this a few times in the past, and this is what I wanted. Every time. I wanted them to destroy houses that people who don't play this game anymore have.
It was bound to happen.
Do you guys have any opposition against them making this decision?
Go for it.
Not even at all. Not even a little bit.
Nope. Not even. No.
Sorry, Adagio.
If you don't have a house for 5 years or something like that, there has to be something done with it.
5 years.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm saying this well, that's without this system, that's what it currently was. They could have it for the lifetime of the game potentially if they never had it in, and then they could never play the game again.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the amount of time they're giving you to even just step into your house before you even destroy it is a lot of time. What was it, like 45 days or something?
Yeah.
Until like Christmas.
So basically,
just walk into it once.
And they're going to give you warnings about it too, so you'll kind of have a good idea that they're doing this stuff.
like emailing you and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they'll email you. I think it has to be in game.
Give you a call. Yeah, you haven't been paying your rent on your house.
You haven't been paying rent by your presence.
Yeah, your subscription ran out, and we're taking your house.
Yeah. They are going to give you a refund for like 80% of like all the money you spent.
If you claim it within 30 days.
Yeah, you just have to claim it. But if you're not playing the game anymore and you have a house, there's no reason for you to keep having that house.
And then you lose that refund also.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you've been gone that long, by the time you come back, you probably don't care about your house that much
Yeah,
anymore.
you probably forgot you had it.
Yeah. It's like it's all just glamour and like trophies and just for fun. So
I think they're even going to all that stuff that's in your house. They're going to give it to this guy that even keeps your items for a certain amount of time and
for 30 days.
Then, yeah, 30 days. So it's like they're giving you all these opportunities for you to, save your house. You can't even do that. Get your items. You can't even do that. There's nothing we can do for you.
I would be okay with them just completely bulldozing all the houses and giving nothing back. You quit the game, man.
Honestly, they
kind
of are. Like honestly, if you haven't, like, who's gonna come back like shortly after their house was demolished and be like, oh, good, just for my refund. Like, I really wanted my refund. Like unless they're doing that, then they were fine with their house being demolished in the first place. Yeah. But like, it's if they didn't want their house demolished, they'd probably come back. It's like, oh, I'll definitely be playing the game again, and I'll
just get another house. You have to find another one,
or just log on and to keep their house. You don't pay the subscription.
Really not that
you actually
hard.
care a lot, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, so everyone just know you'll have a really good opportunity Christmas morning to buy a house if you're going to buy a house.
And there's one thing. If it's an FC house, you personally don't even have to go in. You could just be like, hey, I don't play the game anymore. Can you just walk in the house real quick?
Yeah. For first off, if it's a free company house and you're inactive, you shouldn't have any responsibility for that house by any means.
Really?
So, well, you should give your.
Oh, you're talking about personal house.
Yeah, if you're inactive, someone else needs to be
personal
running your
houses.
FC.
Yeah, personal houses. It's your personal house, so it's gonna go away.
I was thinking of FC houses for some reason.
Yeah, FC houses. They
will.
They will.
But
they will.
It would be very uncommon for it to happen. Almost always, someone will be inactive.
I don't know. I forget if I read about the FC houses where like you have to actually be the guild leader or something that walks in there, or if you don't have to be the guild leader, you just have to be someone in the guild that actually, or sorry, free company, someone in a free company that actually just walks in there.
I'm probably someone just in the free company, and then because it takes longer for leadership to get passed once a leader's been inactive for a very long time. So I imagine that you don't want your free company house to go demolished if your leader is just went inactive for like forever, because there's already that system to claim your free company back also. So.
Yeah.
I do believe in the future they said that they're going to make it so like 2 other people can have access to the house, right? No,
well,
like,
normal
responsibilities.
That's
for personal house. Yeah, so personal houses.
Right, that's what I was saying. Yeah.
This is where it kind of gets a little bit tricky because with personal houses, if people who don't own the house enter it, it doesn't count. The person who owns the house has to enter it.
Oh, even if you give them responsibilities.
Yeah, and so that's why I'm wondering if that goes into the FC section or not, but...
Mm-hmm. It sounds, from what I heard, I think it's any FC member, at least for the FC house.
All right, so everyone, log on Christmas, buy houses, and be done with it.
And then never go in the house again.
Just go in there once every 44 days. The other cool thing that they're adding in is duty clear times, and this is really not a huge thing. I can't really see too many people being like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing in the world, because they don't have a ranking system for it. But I mean, all the ranking systems are really unofficial right now. They're websites, and there's people posting on Reddit and things like that. Mm-hmm. So any unsynced dungeon I think you do will give you an actual clear time. And how excited are you guys for that? At all?
I'd only be excited if there's a ranking system. I don't understand because seeing my own. I just know, like, it's just kind of like, it's very nice, but if I actually cared, I would have just looked at the timer. I just time myself, or like, at the duty timer. Like, that's what I know. That's what I normally do. I say, oh, it was about 15 minutes. That's good enough for me.
Yeah.
As opposed to like 14 minutes and 56 seconds or something like that. Mm-hmm. So no, it doesn't really mean too much to me. But if they had a ranking system, which they did have in Final Fantasy XI for every single essentially instance or duty or challenge, it had a ranking system for how the fastest clear, and it was always kind of fun to see the fastest clear on your server was from these people, and it was this amount of time. You're like, what the heck were those guys doing to get clear that fast?
I don't know, it's just bragging rights, personally. That's how I see it.
It's
Unless there's a
extra
reward
content.
system.
This is extra content. Yeah, if there's a reward system, that'd be great too. But just
That'd be
being
great.
recognized as something that's actually kind of
Achievements.
cool. Yeah, and so
Yeah, I guess you can take an official screenshot of how long it took. It's a little bit easier to do that kind of stuff to
Yeah.
show your rankings, and maybe if it's an easy way to display your rankings and people can actually inspect it, it could be interesting if that's kind of content you want to do. I guess I don't know. It's very very minor. It's like literally just adding like an egg timer to these things. So,
yeah.
but
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just interesting if they do actually expand upon that and start adding ranking systems, and maybe this is just a small stepping stone for that, because that
hopefully.
would be another outlet for people who are really hardcore into the game and competitive. They have some other outlet to go and put that, I guess, energy into. So,
Yeah.
all right, well, cool. One of the last things I want to talk about is they have some changes for weapons. One of the facts is they're introducing a new weapon for primals, which I thought they were going to just introduce a 200 eye level 200 weapon, but they're introducing an eye level, most likely 205 weapon with the new primal. So they're doing this so people who are having a hard time with A3 and A4 Savage will have an easier time. Although Ark, you're like wanting to put some caution to that statement as well.
yeah, well, yeah. So it's very likely that the
100%.
weapon is It's very likely that the weapon is 205. And that the content is, the minimum eye level was 190, so it's definitely between A2 and A3 as far as gear check and everything. So it's definitely a good idea to do this before you do, if you're struggling on A3 or still working on A3 in your early progression, you should definitely farm up your 205 weapons before going into A3S. If they're, and I'm fairly confident they're 205. If they're 210, then they're bumping the raid
Right.
weapon item level up to 215, which they might do. But I think it's more likely that they're just 205.
I don't see the point in doing that, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, just keep in mind that 5 eye levels on a weapon is probably, if your whole group gets them, it's probably around 5 to 6% more raid DPS. Just make sure that you're making your DPS, regardless if you have the weapons or not, look at the where your DPS is at. Like, keep monitoring your DPS checks on these fights, because even when my group got the ESO weapons, which is 10 eye levels, it was maybe a difference of like 200 DPS, and at the time we were missing like 1,000 and like 400 or something like that. And that was just because we hadn't even started trying to refine our DPS and just do the fight well for having good DPS. So it's like, oh, that cuts off 200 DPS that we have to do because we got those weapons, but there's still a lot of DPS that we're behind on right now. So just just make sure you guys are watching those marks, because this won't be a magical fix to DPS checks on these fights.
But this should be your focus. I mean,
Should
if
be-
you haven't
should
cleared A3, I mean,
Right.
it probably should be your focus.
The main thing that you're going to get out of it is that you're going to find it easier to clear. If for A3 in particular, you're going to find it easier to clear the ad phase. For A4S, the A4S is more about just executing the mechanics perfectly. You don't even really need too high DPS. So they'll just make it so you have more wiggle room to make mistakes on A4S.
Yeah.
So, but A3S, this will get you through the ad phase better, and if you were just slightly off or you're just slightly close to the enraged, it'll push you over the edge to get the kill. But
I mean, another fact
this isn't
is
the magical fix for sure.
Yeah, but people who are every once in a while wiping because they don't get the ads down fast enough, they're going to have one more shot where they get it down fast enough and they can progress. They have another shot to go in and practice the other
It might help.
things.
I think as far as mechanics go, just for those those DPS checks, I'm sure most groups who have been working on this fight for a while now and who are actually can be considered struggling on it are past hand to pain at this point, especially with the gear that's out right now. And whether or not they're using limit break, because even if they're behind, they can just use limit break and they'll still be fine for the rest of the fight. It's just remember, again, ad phase, it'll maybe just give you a little bit more, make killing those ads a little bit easier. Even if you're being less coordinated in that phase or have had less practice with it, it'll give you a little more wiggle room to just kind of be a little bit more independent and just do more damage on your own individual ads. And then also the ad in the final phase, if that'll give you a little bit more time to kind of like, if you're just adjusting to the mechanics going on, you can kill it faster. It can kill it with more people being less coordinated around that, or your limit break not being well set up for it also.
No.
So that it'll help with those little things mechanically, but again, It's very well said especially for A3S where you're supposed to be. What's the minimum DPS checks throughout the entire fight? And there's several several markers. It's like there's one at the 3-minute mark. You want to have your boss around 67 or 68%. And then each cascade, there's a marker of the percentage of the boss's health. You can use raid DPS. Raid DPS is slightly inaccurate because of the ad phase. There's a lot of overkill damage and downtime, and there's some variance in that. It'll usually be around like 6.4. I think was it either 6.1 or 6.4. I can't even remember the raid DPS. I think it might have been 6.1 actually. Yeah, I think it is 6.1. That's like around that place you'll get the kill, but there's a lot of things that'll change that. So looking at the percentage of the boss's HP is really good, and if you're really far off on those, don't expect these weapons to be the quick fix for it. They'll definitely help, but they won't be.
So only if you're close in DPS.
Yeah. And again, and we already mentioned a little bit the mechanics. I just don't want people to kind of get these weapons, work really hard on the fight, because I'm sure the fight will take some progression if you're just haven't gotten your A3 clear yet.
The fight looks so good.
Yeah, it looks like a ton of fun. And so you farm up your weapons and be like, yes, this is exactly what we needed to clear this fight, and then still realize that there were a lot of changes you had to do. It might be demoralizing. It's kind of like the same thing I suggest to groups that haven't been looking at their DPS, and they get to the enrage and they're hitting the enrage at 15% and stuff like that, and it's like, isn't that so demoralizing for your group? Shouldn't you have been like saying, you guys, we need to like work on our DPS before we get to the enrage, so we don't hit it. We're not so far behind where we have to make sweeping changes for the entire fight and regress. Like keep an eye on it. Let your group know where they are. That information is out there for sure. There's tons of information about your DPS marks, and don't expect it to be a magical fix. It's about a 5% or so DPS increase. That could be being generous too. So we'll see.
All right.
But yeah, it will help. It will help. So.
Cryo, so we're kind of getting close to the end of the show. Is there anything about this that you felt like this whole patch in 3.1 that they're bringing in that's really important for people to really know and focus on?
When you say know and focus on, what do you mean? Like get more informative?
Well, something that you're like, this is actually you want to talk about that we haven't talked about so far that you figure will be a really good discussion to have, or just like a quick discussion.
I think we covered the biggest points. There's some other notes that you're going to talk about with Relic, which I did kind of want to.
Well, talk about Relic, yeah.
So obviously 1.5 feels bad, man. Not going to have the Relic, not in 3.1. But
yeah, getting in at 3.15 is a little bit disappointing. But I guess like having the Primal is kind of the way to make up for it.
And they're apparently going to change it so where like everything is going to be like 100% drop. The light is going to be way easier to collect. So if you want your Zeta now, if you haven't gotten already for Glamour, so for the Zodiac and everything, you can get it on 3.1. And I personally with Relic, I didn't get past. What's the second stage?
Yeah, I can't remember. Is it light? Is it this first
Animus?
light?
I don't even think I started collecting light.
The second stage is when you use the things to like make it high level 190. So if it's Atma, Atma is the third stage, which is Fate's grinding.
Yeah, So personally, I never really got to do the Relic thing. That's why I'm really excited for the new Relic quest.
Some interesting information about that may be kind of appealing to people. Like it does kind of suck that the Relic's not in 3.1. But there's so much content coming out, so I'm actually I'm not too worried.
I'm not either.
And also the 205 weapons from Thorian will kind of keep people happy. If the Relic was out, then people would probably not do that content. So so it's good for that reason. So anyways, the information about the Relic is that a lot of people know that you get a little advantage for finishing your Zeta. So two things about that. Yoshi has said that if you haven't done your Zeta or you're not close to finishing Zeta, don't do it. That's what he said. But after he said that, they were like, okay, so how much time are we going to save from doing our Zeta? He said 10 hours, yeah. And I was like, 10 hours of playtime. And that's like 10 hours of... That's 10 hours of maybe being efficient and knowing how the quest works already. So that can easily turn into 20 hours if you have no clue what you're doing. And I was like, that kind of almost maybe contradicts what you just said. So take it as you guys will.
Take it as a grain of salt.
If you haven't started it, don't start it.
That's for sure. But if you're really close to finishing in Zeta, you might want to gain that extra 10 hours.
I'm not at all close.
It
I think I'm on the second to last stage, so I probably need to go back and finish it up.
I would suggest that you can finish any Zeta, whatever your closest one is to finishing. Just maybe finish it if you're close. If you're nowhere near it, then like if you're still at the first stage of light farming, maybe it's probably not worth it. It'll probably take you 10 to 20 hours to finish it, anyways. So just keep in mind how much time you're saving, and also it's the fact is that a lot of people are going to get that skip, and you're going to be behind on them, and they're going to be doing the next stages already, and then you're going to be behind doing the next stages with all those people, which will make it harder for when you get there, potentially. So it's worth it if you're close. If you're not there, don't worry about it too much. There'll be a lot of people who are probably at the same point as you. You're just going to risk if you moving slow that you're going to fall behind the curve, and it does get harder once you fall behind the curve.
Right.
And you only need one Zeta, and like Kurz said.
One Zeta for one advantage, and if you have two Zetas, you get 2 advantages for 2 new relics. So it's just this 1-to-1 ratio. It can be any to any. So it's like any Zeta can give you advantage to any of the new relics.
Yeah. So Paladin can go to Warrior, or I guess Bard can go to Machinist. Yeah, I mean, so anything like that.
Yeah, anything. They don't have to relate in any way.
Yep.
Monk can relate to like Astrologian. So yeah. So and again, 10 hours. 10 Yoshi hours or 10 Japanese hours, and they're very, very efficient players. Like they're that's just unquestionable that they're very efficient players. So 10 hours for a Japanese player is maybe 15 to 20 hours for us. Yeah. So I would say that it's potentially worth it if you're close. I'm very happy that I've had my finish, because that's like, whoa, that sounds like a lot of time that I'm skipping actually.
Yeah, 10 hours is nice. Yeah. Oh, and congratulations to all the monks. While you were talking about monks, I heard monks. When you're doing references. Congratulations to all you guys who are going to get invisible weapons, and you're going to be able to fight with your fist now. I don't think I've heard that enough times. You guys should tell me more times how much you wish you could have invisible weapons.
So, yeah, this new patch, can they put invisible weapons?
Yeah, so it's done, guys. You're an actual monk. You're going out there and you're punching stuff with your fist, which is what people are looking for. Yeah. Ark, was there any other points that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think we covered most things in this. No, not really. I don't know if anyone had any more questions about like some of the content. I'm sure I missed facts that are kind of maybe more well known. But yeah, I hope to see some people in airship content. Man.
Titan popcorn fists are the best monk weapon ever.
Yeah. I like how a lot of people, when we were talking about things that we need to discuss, we were like, oh, you didn't talk about the dances. You didn't talk about the...
Oh yeah, the vibe.
I remember what I was going to tell. Well, just a quick mention that one other thing that's really awesome about airship content. I don't know how many. I don't know. Maybe a lot of the streamers that were here earlier are gone now. But airship content is going to be amazing stream content. It's going to be like, what did this person see when he was streaming airship content? Like, it's even content that I might actually go back and see what that streamer was seeing. When I'm like not able to play the game or something like that. It's because of all the RNG behind it. It'll be very, very interesting, and you're gonna see some awesome like fails from them, like them go and fight a monster they've never seen before, when they're unmanned or don't know the mechanics to these monsters, and they're probably relatively simple mechanics. It's like 1 phase fights or 1 or 2 phase fights. So it's going to be awesome stream content. Hopefully I'll stream. I haven't been streaming much lately because I'm just waiting around for 3.1. I'm going to be streaming a lot when exploratory. Every time I do exploratory islands, I'm probably going to stream for sure.
Yeah, because it's going to be a different experience for everybody.
It's kind of like streaming PvP, so it'll be kind of fun. And in PvP, you also see lots of great fails from the streamer.
Yeah.
I like Sia in chat mentioned tanks are getting their damage nerfed. Or is that based on the melded gear? Because I don't really.
I don't know. I didn't hear too much about that.
I'm pretty sure they're talking about for 3.2 because there's definitely nothing. The only tank change that's happening is the TP change to Paladin. That's all I know of.
Yeah, no, there's no, there's not really reason to nerf tank DPS right now. So, no, I don't. They just said they're making adjustments to probably make it so their stats. It's like like fending gear is probably more interesting, or maybe something to do with vitality, or maybe make it so they're down the. It's probably gonna be quality of life changes around tanks to DPS.
Okay, so not necessarily a nerf, but just an adjustment to tank damage.
Adjustments, yeah, yeah, and
I don't want a nerf because I'm a warrior. So.
All right.
No, they don't. They've said they'll never nerf. They'll just buff other classes when they make something too powerful. So
okay. Yeah, that makes sense. They might buff like Dark Knight and Paladin damage, for example.
Maybe. That's a whole nother debate.
Yes. I'll yeah, say that for another MogTalk.
Well, we do have a few viewer questions here to kind of end up the show. Dragar was asking kind of what you guys actually expect for class changes coming in 3.1, which is kind of relevant to what we were talking about.
Right.
Do you guys see any just changes you're like, this has to happen? Like, I'm pretty sure they're going to do this.
Are we talking about changes they've definitely talked about? Or
Either
just
way.
changes? Well, so they definitely talked about Ninja TP fix, Paladin TP fix, and Ninja Mudra fix, which I'm really excited about because Ninja's my second 60. So I like playing that a lot for an alt stuff that's not raid stuff. So I am super excited about that.
You think they're just going to reduce the TP actions cost?
I don't know. There might be percentages of skill usage. I think that's what they did when they did Blood Weapon. I'm not completely sure about that. I'm just kind of guessing, but they're definitely going to be helped out a lot. And
I mean, that's the only way they could do it, right?
The blood weapon fix was because
That's for Dark Knight, I guess.
It was punishing Dark Knights when they used more blood weapons. Like Dark Knights still have just as much. I think they're slightly better than Pallies, but they're still just as bad as Pallies are. Honestly, if you can get more blood weapons, then it's actually more TP efficient. But everyone has TP problem. Like TP songs are. It's just Pallies and ninjas.
Ninjas really do though.
Well, I mean, and it's not. These are quality of life fixes. Like these aren't breaking the classes.
No, they're not. No.
Yeah, TP problems on Pally or Ninja isn't really a major issue. It's just something you have to work around, and you have to be a little bit more cautious. Like you can make less mistakes in your rotation because TP is a more a really powerful resource, and you have to make sure that you stretch out your TP correctly before basically it's efficient to use a TP song. And things like that. You can't script your Invigorate as a ninja, and Pallies you have to be very careful with some of the things you're doing to use TP. And one of the great ways to work around that for Pallier currently is that you just make them do more mechanics and make it so like DPS you don't currently have TP issues. Yep, and that's assuming you don't have a ninja in your group. If you have a ninja in your group, Pallies have absolutely no TP issues at all.
Yeah. So Hacks here has some questions for you. That he's been asking, and I mean that's the kind of the big thing. You're one of the. I'm just going to say this real quick. You're the only person in the world right now defending paladins.
Who, me?
Mark, yeah, you're the only person in the world that's defending them, and I
don't think I'm the only person in the world.
I couldn't find it. There's some people, but they weren't like.
I'm starting to see parses that are rather high for Pallies, just because people are just there's not a good representation for Pallies right now. But they're such an amazing class, and I've had so much success with them. I'm doing a group without a warrior, and everyone thinks warriors are overpowered and are super amazing. And I would say that's totally they're probably the best tank because of how flexible they are, but I still think they're completely overrated. Especially, I know that's probably an unpopular opinion, but
it is.
I think it's a very I do think they are the best tank. I just don't think it's as big as people think it is.
So I don't think so either. I wouldn't say that it's like overpowering the other two tanks. Yeah. It's just clearly better in some amount.
Okay, so Hacks, this leads into a question. He's like, how do you feel about warriors? So
yeah, that's kind of how I said. It's like
exactly.
I would. Honestly, as far as I always want my tanks or people in my group to play whatever they want, and the way the content is set up right now, it's set up really in a really cool way. And we run Pally Dark Knight, and we've cleared all the content, and we've cleared it in a decent amount of time for how much we raid. We only raid 3 days a week, so we're not super hardcore in how often we raid. And 3 days a week, 3 hours each. And what I'm finding is that the content is actually pretty well balanced on how the damage goes out. You see very interesting, because warriors are so flexible, they can kind of tank either type of damage rather well, but not as good as a Pally doing physical damage, and not as well as Dark Knight doing magical damage. And when you kind of set the Dark Knight and the Pally, when you build your strategy around, okay, let's get our Pally doing as much physical tanking as possible, let's get our Dark Knight doing as much magical tanking as possible in every single fight you do, you start to see some really interesting things about how easy it is to heal those and how easy it is to get them to do their maximum damage potential. And I know a lot of people are using FF logs and looking at but these tanks who are not Pallies are doing like these crazy parses and stuff like that. And really, when you're in progression and you're not just trying to get the highest parse you can on a fight, all these tanks, every single one of them, including Pallies and Dark Knights and Warriors, they're all, like for A4S, for example, they're all doing around the same amount of damage when you get your first kill. And some doing less than others, but it has nothing to do with the class. It really just has to do with what your group's doing and how your strategy is. And there's a lot of wiggle room. You don't need the maximum amount of tank DPS. You just need your raid DPS to be in the right place. And you can get that from a lot of sources. But yeah, people kind of like get into the min-maxy stuff and like saying like how like, but this is why this and this is why this. And it's really just like that's maybe true and maybe true for your group, and you should keep doing that for your group. But it's by no means required to kill the fight and to get it on farm. And we're already we're starting to see that when you experiment a little bit more with these classes, you're starting to see some really cool stuff from Pally in particular. I think that when they get some quality of life changes, TP being one of them, because it does kind of suck that if I play my Bard, and I don't get a goat on, I think it's only A1 that it's really an issue. Because again, you just can get your Pally doing a few more mechanics. Of course, that makes their DPS look lower, but someone's got to do those mechanics. So the raid DPS comes from other places, and we also notice that you get like more healer DPS from Pally. But anyways, the other quality of life changes we might see with Pallies may be that their heal will be instant cast, or like some of their other utility might become a little bit more easier to use without dropping damage, and like that's just great stuff. But I don't expect to see. I'd be worried to see them or Dark Knights getting more damage, especially if Pally's got more damage. I think Dark Knights will start to become the class that gets bullied a bit. But yeah, like in the future, like I'm a group that's going to be running probably Pally Dark Knight for this whole tier, and I won't be running with a Warrior. And you can see how successful we are doing that, and how overrated Warriors are.
So he was also curious about if you have any interest in speedruns, but it doesn't sound like you're more of a speedrun person. It's more of like a clear person. Yeah.
I would love to do it, and I have all the capability. We have all the skill in our group and capabilities to do it. I just think that there's too much. It's too much for my group. We don't raid enough, and the people just start to burn out.
Yeah, they're kind of burned out. You don't want to burn them even more out on the content.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I'm not bashing Warriors. I have said they are the best tank. Without doubt, because that flexibility, I think Square Enix definitely intended you to have a Warrior in every single group. However, that benefit is very small. It's very, very small. It's nice to have. You're not gimping your group not running it.
Small really matters when it comes to DPS checks and Savage.
And again, that's the other thing about it, is that the DPS checks are very much exaggerated. It's more about mechanic checks. The DPS checks matter when you're doing the content like as trying to get like a world first clear.
So Warriors are world first.
Yeah, and that's without a doubt. I do agree with that, because the DPS checks matter too. But you're going to find that most groups struggle on mechanics, and their DPS is usually low because of mechanics. And sometimes you'll be making making healers work harder, or making people do mechanics harder because of your focus too much on DPS. And really, you just need to even if you have a Warrior in group, it's like, tone it down a bit. You don't need to be doing as much damage as you see those other Warriors doing. And again, like I said,
I'm open to. I understand that like I'm definitely not one of the Warriors that does the insane DPS. I just like doing DPS if I can, if they give me the opportunity.
All tanks should too. It's more looking at your raid DPS, and again, going through progression, all these fights, I've never had an issue with our tank DPS. It's always been higher than I needed it to be from both our tanks, and much more than higher. And same thing, and it's in comparison to Warrior DPS too. Most Warriors, on average, from all the kill videos I saw, were doing less than our tanks, and that's because they probably had less gear or had less knowledge of the fight. So, and they were clearing it too, and they were clearing it with less DPS. Like Warrior Dark Knight combos, Warrior Pally combos were doing less damage than my Pally Dark Knight combo. Again, probably because of clear, but they are still clearing the fights. So why do you guys need so much more DPS from these other tanks, or why do you expect more from them?
If they clear the fights with no issue, I don't really care what their DPS is at the end of the day, as long as it's sufficient enough to clear the fight. That's really what matters.
And you will be able to do that with.
Well, the only argument, and we won't dive too much into this, but I think the only argument with that, that's for Tank Talk, which is in about 3 weeks, by the way, guys.
Yeah, hopefully you guys get some good representation.
Maybe I just need to get you on the show, Ark. I know you don't tank, but like
I feel like you really need to be on here.
I mean, if you can't find anyone else, it just sucks, because I don't even have a Pally to 60 right now. I can only talk at it from raid.
Is Failcom your tank? Your paladin?
Yes. Yep, he is.
Get Failcom on here. He'll be all right.
I try. I don't think he'll be interested.
So
he'll give me lots of advice if I do come on.
Yeah, I mean, I want to get somebody because I just want someone to kind of counterbalance the show and have someone out there that wants to actually support and talk about Paladin more than just,
Yeah.
hey, I'm Dark Knight or Warrior, and that's all we're going to talk about. No, I want someone to actually.
And it should just be a fun debate about like what do you find better about these classes and why do they work for you? Because it's indisputable that they work. They all work really well. And the worst thing you can do is shoehorn a class into your group, or force people to change classes, and that pressure that's put on the group, and you lose the coordination. Like, it's different healing a warrior, and it's different building a strategy around a warrior, and if you're not used to playing with a warrior, you can get by without it. For sure you can.
Right.
Especially if you have a ninja in your group.
I mean, and the only, I think, fight on that is just like, you're going to clear the content in less attempts if you have a more optimal setup. With optimal, quote unquote, because you have a warrior, but
maybe. But again, I think when I approach fights, it's not about DPS checks. It's about mechanics. We always struggle on mechanics in my group. I've never hit a DPS wall in my group.
Well, yeah, the only people who do that is World First. Yeah,
pretty much World First groups are the only. And I find that pallies are easier to get through those mechanics and learn those mechanics faster. So I like, given the choice between a warrior and a pally, if my pally were to leave at any point, I would pick a pally again. I really would. So if I didn't have a ninja in my group, I would probably pick the warrior.
So unless if people are going for World First, just you shouldn't really look into that.
Look up kill videos with pallies. Look up kill videos with people who are similar competent to you and are similar skilled to you. See how they do it and learn from them. You don't have to conform to like the most optimal setup, because you probably won't be seeing the actual benefits that people are claiming from them. For you, it's more about probably doing mechanics. For people who are like me and are trying to clear the content maybe just before 3.1, it's more about the mechanics and doing the mechanics efficiently than any comp that you could possibly have. And just use your comp, whatever your comp has its advantages. Like Frosty has a comp has a ton of range DPS. He's going to be doing a bunch of different strategies that I'll never even use, because he's just got a ton of more range DPS, and his experience in the fights are going to be totally different. No. And yeah, it's very similar. I don't know. People are just a little bit too focused on the tank stuff. It's all over the place right now for everything. But
yeah. Hey, I'll get Potato on the show if you can give me contact for Potato. By the way.
I just want people to be open-minded about it. I'm not trying to say one's better than the other. I'm just saying they're all viable in their own way. People could be successful with any of these classes right now.
Yeah. All right, we'll cut it off there because we could go on. This could go on for quite a while.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of wraps it up for tonight's show. We've had a little bit. We went almost 2.5 hours so far. So we've done good. We've done good, guys.
We talked our asses out of it.
Yeah. So I want to also again thank Ark and Cryo for coming on the show. You guys are definitely a blast to have on the show. And everybody should do a clap emote. Everyone in chat do a clap emote for Cryo coming on the show and making all that work, and for Ark coming on the show. Yeah, go ahead.
It's gonna register. Here we go. There we go.
Yeah, there you go. Do are there any shout-outs you guys want to do before we get to the end of the show?
Yeah.
Do it, Cryo.
Well, I want to give a shout out to Sorbet just because she gave that host, and I spent a lot of time in her channel because I'm one of her mods, and I just she as of late she hasn't really been streaming Final Fantasy just because her raid group is kind of taking a break. They're going to be back around December-ish, and then at that point she's probably going to start doing Final Fantasy every single day. So if you guys like Final Fantasy, I mean, it's going to be streaming around December. Right now, we're a variety stream a little bit, but it's a great stream. It's really fun, so if you guys want to come around, check it out.
There you go. I gave her a shout-out there. All right. Any shout-outs for you? Do you want to shout-out anyone besides your raid group? All right.
I mean, just my raid group again. Yeah, and shout-out to like Felcom, who's like defending Paladins in chat right now, which is awesome.
You go, Felcom.
Yeah. And hopefully I'll be doing a lot more streaming come 3.1. I probably won't stream going through the story, but lots of exploratory content and our progression, Thorian's Reign and stuff like that. That'll be fun. It's always fun to see like a group like screwing up a crap ton, and we're all human, so
yeah.
Like this every group.
Yeah. I don't stream yet, but I might in the future. So
you got a webcam coming, man.
Yeah. And hopefully me and Frosty can have like a joint, like we're both streaming, like we can queue up together in exploratory content and like do streaming at the same time and stuff.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I would love to troll you.
You
Show
show
a
me.
pull
I'll
a
go.
giant mob.
I'm sure we could at least do Void Arc for sure. That'd be a lot easier.
I will make sure that we do it together.
Yeah.
God, that's all the fun I could have. All right. Well, before we leave, I also want to thank Kurara, who's in the chat right now. Awesome, wonderful person who is out there helping us gather all the questions. And if you guys are interested in gathering questions for the show, feel free to apply to the show and come in as someone who gathers questions or helping out in any way. We need lots of people to help us out. Just if you want to come on the show, if you want to do art, if you want to do anything for the show at all, it would be appreciated. And of course, Gilly, who was in the show a little bit earlier, in the chat a little bit earlier today. Yeah, and he did kind of the graphics that I mutilate every single week, and it's appreciated. It definitely helps out a good bit. And I also want to inform everybody. We have decided on a day that we're going to officially change over to a new schedule. Starting November 28th, we will be officially changing our schedule to be every Saturday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, which will hopefully open up a lot of different room for new guests and more viewers, because that's just a better time. Yeah. And I don't think I've heard anyone say anything negative about it. So yeah, definitely. Because you'll be rating again in 3.2, and it'll be a little bit harder for you to make on Mondays.
Yep, Saturday I can almost always make.
Yeah, and so we're going to have...
sometimes streams.
Yeah, Kerr does stream too. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's give a shout out to Kerr, wonderful person, Kerr, when she does her streaming. She doesn't do it as much anymore because she's real busy right now, but when she does,
it's really fun. It's a good time.
Yeah, definitely. And also it opens up to a lot of the EU guys that we completely miss with this time. There's no one in Europe that can watch right now because of the time of the show. Although, Creator comes in every once in a while, and it's kind of funny. I'm like, you should definitely be asleep, buddy. But for now, next week will be the same time. It will be 6:30 Pacific p.m. and then 9:30 Eastern. Our show next week will be purely focused on discussing player burnout. I'm really hungry, guys.
I kind of am too, honestly.
Yeah, so discussing player burnout, and we'll be having Milo come on the show for the second time, or third time now. We haven't had him on for a while. And he's going to come on and talk about it. So you guys get wand up.
Wand.
And get ready for that, guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. Awesome. We do have some EU guys. You guys are going to have a better time to watch this next time.
Yeah.
Cryo, do you want to do the honors of finding us someone to host?
Oh boy, I don't know if I could do that with my internet connection right now.
You don't know if you could find somebody? I can look too, if it doesn't work out
Let's
for
look
it.
together.
Yeah, let's look together and see if we could find somebody, the host here, before we end the show tonight. And thank you everybody who came to the show. It's awesome to have you on the show and watching us. Even though this is some content that you guys have probably already seen and read about before, I think it's still a lot of fun to talk about this stuff. I had fun talking about it.
Yeah.
Ark, you're great to talk to.
Yeah.
You always have so much to say.
Sometimes he talks a lot, but sometimes that's actually a good thing because sometimes I don't have anything to say.
Yeah, I know. I like to talk a lot. Yeah, I just keep it's good. I want people to be very open-minded, and I'm very receptive to whatever people have to say. So
yeah.
I'll have something to say on both sides of something always. Hopefully.
It looks like they're kind of cheering for Bob Ross, guys.
Bob Ross, yeah.
Do you want to host Bob Ross?
Great.
All right.
Yes, please.
So let's do a host for Bob Ross, and I just want to again shout out to both of you guys coming on the show.
Yeah, that was
amazing.
really fun.
And let's do our awkward wave for like 15 seconds here while we're
I
waiting
can't
for it to
wait
end.
because my camera's frozen, so just imagine me waving. Right now.
I imagine you waving. Good night, guys. We'll see you next time, and same time, same place. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Shout out went out. Or not? Did I do a shout out? I did a shout out and not a host. Hold on, let me do a host. That would make more sense, right? Host.
I'm so waving.
Bob Ross. Keep waving. It's okay.
Come on, just register one wave.
All right, it's hosted. All right, let me stop the stream.